Good evening and welcome to tonight's race. I am Bakashinobi, and we have a fantastic race between Gundampilotspaz and nitzguy1. I am joined by rexxraul tonight. How are you doing this evening, Rex?
I'm doing really well, and I'm looking really forward to this match.
It's definitely been an exciting one. 1-1. What's on the line? Elimination from the advancement in the tournament. In order to get into one of the two playoff races to go and get to table, you need to have at least a 2-1 record. With how things are tonight, one of our runners is going home. Is it going to be Gundampilotspaz, or is it going to be nitzguy? And that's exciting position for us to see, terrifying position for our runners. What are you hoping for our runners tonight, Rex?
I think our runners probably are feeling okay-ish with Edge as the start. It's always difficult to gauge when you're looking at the objectives and the characters at the beginning of a race, whether or not you think that's going to favor you, because any advantage that you're getting out of this start is something that the opponent also has. In a one-on-one race, sometimes these matter not as much. It kind of depends on your own comfort level with characters. Now, Edge kind of makes, even with his starting equipment, makes most of the overworld pretty much doable right off the top of the bat. So the question is, what other characters are we going to get to make an interesting mid to late game scenario?
I agree. This is one of those things where if I see I'm starting with an edge, I'm sorely tempted to just rush overworld. Don't go and do a lot of looting. Don't do any character checks yet. Just the short swords, the ninja flame spell. All of that is going to be enough to clear pretty much anything overworld. I want to go and rush that and start getting objectives cleared or going and hitting key item spots and just get things in my inventory so I can see how I want this run to shape up.
Yeah, that's a good point. And barring something like the Earth Crystal, like all of the looting that you've got available in the overworld is just not going to compare to what you could do once you get underground. So getting underground faster and prioritizing any looting that you need to do under there might be the way to go.
Yeah, and another thing, when I have Edge, I only really care about Edge's turns in the overworld. And I don't want to go and have other characters cluttering up my party. So if I just blitz spots without going and recruiting more party members, it's easier for me to get back around to Edge's turn and just take down bosses faster.
Yeah, and this is one where Edge's high agility really comes to an advantage, especially in the overworld and some of the mid-game fights as well. Putting him in the middle spot just kind of focuses a lot more of the battles around him as well.
Yeah, and that middle slot accuracy bonus can still go and help with damage as well. So it's a great thing to go and do early to just blitz through the seed. And now it looks like we're starting. Let's see what we get to start and who our partner is.
Oh, I don't think the runners could ask for a better companion than Rosa and a Magma Key. You don't even need to rush the overworld. You could go straight to the underworld if you want. It's up to you. The world is your oyster at this point.
I agree. I would still be checking some of the overworld stuff because I would really love to have a pan. I would consider doing Antlion, maybe ordeals as well, just get those out of the way. I always like doing ordeals to bring Tella online, and if I want Cecils, he's going to go and be much more helpful if he's a paladin than if he's a Dark Knight. I would like that, but just charging Magma, going and checking the free item in Feymarch when you only need a hook and a Baron Key potentially and a pan. Yeah, there's a lot you can go and get.
It's always interesting, I think, when you've got these Magma Key starts when you go Underworld, especially on a seed where one of the objectives is launch the Falcon, which does require you going through that hook route, the other method that you have to get underground. If there's a seed where you don't want to see a Magma Key, it's ones that have launch the Falcon as one of the objectives. So you kind of have to double up on your Underworld access, and that's just one more key item spot down.
Yeah, unless we go and find Adamant and Legend Sword much more conveniently when we find a hook, I agree. It's going to be something where you're just stuck searching around, going and looking for another way. And then there's the awkward fights as well. You can go and overpower them pretty easily, but it is a way underground. You can go and do them at level 18 or 20, but they're going to be a lot faster if you can go and do this after you do a big grind. Say you only have one objective left to get your crystal, grind to your Zeromus levels, take that out, and then go to Z.
Well, we're seeing some divergence right now as Gundam's Pilot Spaz is heading up to Damsian Castle, finds a Porum as another character there. Meanwhile, Nitzguy has gone underground, but instead of going to the Feymarch Rest, has decided to do a Sylph Cave run. Basically, wants to make it so that there's only going to be 2 possible times to go to Fabul Castle, and just trying to hedge that he might not find the pan in one of the easy gotten spots.
Yeah, this is one of those things where this is going to sound really silly, but I do enjoy just taking a clockwise or counterclockwise route through the Underworld, because I want to check, look at Dwarf Castle, see if I can go and pull some good loot out of there, check the shops as well to see if there's anything amazing that I want to get or make note of, check Tomra for the same reasons, go to Feymarch to get even more loot, check more shops and get the key item there, and then finish off at Words are hard. Because I've just been distracted by Nitzguy unfortunately getting wiped out by the Warrior's Chest. I don't know where he last saved.
Did he save outside?
Oh,
No.
that hurts. That is...
I was wondering about that. It looked like he didn't save, and I'm like, is he not planning on looting Feymarch? Because that's such a great source of early game loot if you've got an early magma key, is that you just reset once you hit the Warrior's Chest, and the Warriors being the first chest is a really nice place to get it, because then you can just reset, loot the rest of it without fear, get the higher tier of items that's available in that spot compared to a lot of other looting options that we have. And so that's really going to set Nitz behind.
Yeah, just having to spend another almost minute going through the intro really stings for Nitzguy. He thankfully has... He also has to go and sit through the aggregate cutscene. Thankfully, he hasn't done anything super important. The only thing of importance he did is walk through Feymarch, but yeah, this is not pleasant. This is something where it's easy to go and be rushing and trying to be going quickly and forget to save, but it really hurts not going and taking those saves.
Meanwhile, it looks like Gundam has prioritized his party a little bit more, wants to know what he's working with. And so it's gone to Mysidia, found Yang and Edward, and now is going to the Watery Pass, another place that has a bit better treasure output. Finds a Sid there, decides to ditch Edward for his Sid, and he's got basically a full party at this point.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid party. He's got Rosa, he's got Porum, he's got Yang, Edge, and Sid. That's pretty heavy. No black magic yet, which you're really going to go and want a black mage, because we do have the warp glitch on in these flags.
Yeah. But that's one of the things, that all these are the basically free character locations. We haven't seen Ordeals as a free one yet, and so neither of the runners have open to them a black mage at this point. But looks like Gundam might be looking exactly for that, because once he used that warp glitch, is going to check the character on Mount Hobbs as well.
Yep, just going and getting himself set up for that, going to anchor with Sid, who's level 20 character but starts with 8 agility, compared to Edge, who comes in at 25 and starts at 20 agility. Sid will go and make your Edge pretty quick and is not going to go and impact the other enemies too much. Maga Sisters for a Kane. That's not the worst fight. Going and getting rid of Yang. Don't disagree, because Yang on flag sets that go and give good treasures, it's easy to go and have him just be outclassed by anyone who can, hey, here's a defensor we found somewhere in the Watery Pass. Kane, take this 106 attack power weapon and start doing oodles of damage.
It depends on how much you're planning on using leveling, and if you're going for a party, you've already got Sid, you've already got Edge. Like, it seems like a berserking strategy is really what the Doctor orders here with the party that Gundampilotspaz has built so far. And so it kind of makes sense that you wouldn't want Yang, because you can kind of cheat levels with using a berserk strategy, and you don't need to grind nearly as much. And Yang gets a lot of his bonuses from those level gains, and so his worth kind of lessens. So I can understand this make, especially not wanting to ditch Sid, because especially if I'm a Dwarf Axe, or especially a Curse Ring, he makes a particularly good anchor for the end game as well.
Yeah, Sid is helpful early game. He doesn't scale nearly as well as Yang does, but he does go and he just starts pretty beefy at level 20, so he can go and help out a lot on these overworld checks. Give him a Rune Axe, a Poison Axe, an Earth Hammer. He's going to go and be doing great damage on the overworld up there with Edge, and just really able to help carry damage early.
Those sparse treasure chests being a bit of an annoyance in this Feymarch for Nitzguy. He did get a power robe, though. That is a very good piece of equipment for any of his attackers. Probably Edge at first, but depending on what equipment we get for other characters. Now, Nitzguy only has the Rosa and the Edge at this point, so I imagine Edge will be donning that before too long.
And we find an Earth Crystal in the treasure chest in the Feymarch. That is, we talked about these T Wildish flags a little bit, where Water Pass has boosted loot, this Feymarch path has boosted loot. The Earth Crystal has really boosted loot.
Yeah, it's one of the primo spots, if not the primo spot for treasure in the seed. So we'll see if Nitz decides to go there. With getting an Earth Crystal this early, I think it's really hard to avoid it. If he ends up taking that cane that we saw Gundampilotspaz pick up, it becomes even more imperative to get good equipment, because Kane really relies on the equipment in order to really unlock his potential.
I agree. He starts with I don't want to go and call his weapon completely pathetic, because it serves him well in the Demist fight, but it is absolutely pathetic compared against everything else in the game. The Spear is really just very weak. It's when he can go from something that's like a 10 attack power weapon to a 106 attack power weapon span of doing that treasury, I think that goes and helps Kane out a lot. And another thing I like for Nitzguy, he hasn't done any character checks yet. What he pulls out from that treasury might decide what characters he wants, because he's going to go and have a lot of loot. He's going to go and have a lot of things he can take. If you find a crystal sword, we may have the vanilla agility flag on, but you probably take Cecil anyways.
Yeah. In that situation, if you've got the crystal sword, the Cecil agility situation is much less of a liability, just because he's smashy so good.
Wait, that's treasury!
And we can see that we have gone and entered in the best phase of this seed, because we are now raiding the treasury. Ooh, not finding anything good so far. White Spear, however, Excalibur, Defense Sword. I am eating my words. Masamune.
Another power robe.
Another Masamune.
Poof. This is one of the best ones that I've seen in quite a while. That's good. If we find a Cecil, that Excal is great. And even if we don't, we've got an Edge who can dart it, so that's really good. We've got great stuff with that White Spear. Will be good if Nitzguy decides to pick up that cane. Yeah, that was a very nice one. And a cursed ring next door, too.
Gundampilotspaz found one on the west side of Hobbs, but Toria is the one-stop shop for, do you want an absurd amount of weaponry? Here, have an absurd amount of weaponry.
Yeah, and Nitz doesn't need to do a whole lot of looting throughout the rest of the seed with how good that is. Anything that he doesn't need for his party, he can sell to fund the endgame items that he's going to need in order to complete it. Like if he wants Cure 3s, Silk Webs, extra Star Veils, if we're going to need Sirens, that's all going to be going into the coffers for that.
Yeah, if you don't have someone who can use the sword, well, you can either throw it with Edge or just sell it for money, which is, neither of those are bad options, to be entirely honest.
When we see there was a lunar staff in there too, so yeah, we've got some good stuff for mages if we get it. He decides to sell that defense sword to fund his Gear 3s. Gonna be a Stardust Rod for Gundampilotspaz over in Antlion Cave for completing that. So we've got some good black magic stuff. Now we just need to find a black mage.
Yeah, and maybe this guy's going to charge up for deals with double ninja swords. And to be fair, Wanderer, he has a defense sword, a white spear, and an Excalibur. We don't know if there's multiple Kane, so he's going to go and regret having not 2 weapons for Kane, but with the one that is around, he's going to be just fine and dandy with a white spear. Granted, mathematically, the defense sword ends up being a bit better because it has higher base accuracy than the white spear, but that is a level of min-maxing that might be slightly excessive.
Yeah, what bothers me sometimes is there's a couple of really annoying bosses that are resistant to that holy that the white spear has onto it, and that's what always irks me the most. But The White Spear is definitely a very serviceable end game weapon for Cade, without a doubt.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's really easy to go and oh, I just sold the defensor. That's so bad. He's got a White Spear. He's got an Excalibur. That's the money can be really important, so he doesn't have to come back to his shop for Cure 3s.
Yes.
I kind of dislike finding Cure 3's Overworld, to be entirely honest, just because that can go and I have to remember to come back to the shop later because I don't want to spend all of my money now. Or I have to go and sell a whole bunch of stuff now to afford those White Spear, the Cure 3s. And not coming back to shops is really important.
And it's really annoying with something like a Cure 3 because it's hard to tell oftentimes early in the season just how many of those that you're going to need. That's one of the items, more so than any of the other consumables, where I don't have a stock amount. Now, knowing that you've got Rosa in the party means that you could probably buy less than you normally would, but that's just one of the ones where, depending on how early we find a go mode, what our grind is going to be, that sort of situation is going to dictate how many Cure 3s I'm going to want. Like, if I'm going to have to do a lot of moon bosses and I don't have access to a bunch of like cabins or tents, the Cure 3s really help to get through that faster.
Oh yeah, they can be super important for mid-fight healing. I'll stock up heavily on Cure 2s because I like going and just not using tents sometimes and just,
Yeah.
I can go and heal up. Or I have a Cecil I'm walking through Feymarch. Ooh, there's a physical punching boss. Let me go and heal up my Cecil and let him cover all of my other party members. Meanwhile, Gundampilotspaz is going into that Feymarch and is going to go and be rewarded with all the stuff that nitzguy found, which was pretty much a strength ring and a power robe, and I don't think there was much anything else. Until you get down to Feymarch proper, which has the Earth Crystal.
nitzguy fighting in the Baron Inn found the CPU. Unfortunately, got hit by a Globe 199 on his Edward, but able to recover, defeat that, and seize Bahamut of the second one. And you're seeing the power of this beefed up Edge in the center position in these early fights. No need to even think about Star Veils for this one.
Turns out, Crystal Sword Cecil's not the only thing you do over 1,000 damage at their base levels. You just need to go give Edge a power robe, a strength ring, and his two best swords. Well, his two moon swords.
Yeah, that works pretty good.
Ooh, and we find Twin Harp. This guy has a lot of things over by Toria. They are definitely long checks, but maybe he'll be tempted to go and do some of them. He does have a really strong edge to just simply laugh and completely destroy any boss there.
Yeah, unless he ends up like getting wyverned or something like that, I think that Edge can handle pretty much everything in that spot.
And even Wyvern, this is still an overworld spot. Edge starts at 20 agility. He's lost 5 from the Murasame, but is gaining back from the Masamune, so he's still a very speedy character.
Gundampilotspaz has picked up that Earth Crystal as well, picked up that Power Robe through the looting, and now is going to be seeing those bosses. I believe it was Octomam and a blue robe down here in the... Oh, it's a purple robe, excuse me, one of the Mylons. Down here in the Feymarch, and now it's going to decide where to go next. nitzguy going to get offered that Sid, decides to pick him up as well.
Yeah, I believe he still has Edward as well, so that's something that's easy to say, yes, you can go. Goodbye, Edward. We do not need your dulcet tones. We need we need the hard mechanical knowledge of Sid.
Dulcet tones, I think that's my purview.
I didn't realize you were a prince in disguise.
Something like that. I saw Gundampilotspaz enter a couple of these equipment shops in the Underworld. Baka, what are your thoughts of doing shopping in gated shops like the Underworld in this particular flag set?
There can be a lot of interesting things to pick up there, to be entirely honest. The most interesting thing I would take note of is Drain Spears. They are exceedingly high attack power weapons that are absolutely awful to use because they're 22% accuracy and give -10 to all stats, and only Kane can use them. But Edge can throw them for good damage, and that can be a real help in some situations where you don't want to physically attack something like Antlion or D-Lunars. You can go and bypass the physical counters with some really strong darts. So that's something I would keep an eye out for, but I would probably be keeping an eye out for them when I have absurd amounts of money, which you might be able to get by looting the Earth Treasury.
Yeah, there's a couple really good weapons that you can get depending on what characters you have. Ninja swords can be available for sale in these Underworld gated shops. Cat claws for Yang. And some of the better arrows, like you can see samurai arrows and things like that. But I think oftentimes there's only a couple pieces of equipment that I've looked for, like exclusively in gated shops. We've already found, both of our runners have found a curse ring, which is one of the big, I think, high ticket, like must buy items for pretty much across the board. Almost everybody wants to have a curse ring in their inventory. But other than that, I think it's kind of like up to the runners to feel out for themselves what's on their shopping list.
Yeah, I definitely, if I have the Earth Crystal, I'd hold off on checking the armor shops because you're going to be coming back to Feymarch most likely. You're going to be coming back to Dwarf Castle. Maybe not Tamra, but yeah, I would look at that treasury, see what I get from there, and then decide, all right, what do I need to go and fill out gaps in my party? And we're still...
if there is a need, then might want to see shops that are near you. In the overworld, I think there's actually more like more things that I want to buy in gear shops. Things like the elemental claws for Yang and Edge, and the like mute daggers, that sort of thing. But the gated shops I found I'm buying less and less of those.
Yeah, gated shops I really feel are great for bringing you over that gap of Kane's still using a flame sword, or Cecil has his silver staff still. You use it to go and push you into, I want to go and really ramp up the damage I'm doing because I need to go and pick up the pace of the damage. But otherwise, if it's still early and I'm still looting, I do like just checking more treasure chests and doing a bit extra looting before going into the shops, because if I haven't done a lot of looting, I'm not going to be able to afford any of the weapons anyways. So it's one thing I have to remember, and it's really easy to confuse yourself with, I saw this thing somewhere. Where was it? Was it Tamra? No. Was it Dwarf Castle? No.
Now you're calling me out, Baka.
I'm sorry, Rex. Do you live in my head? Because this is stuff...
Nitzguy has gone to the Fabul and completed Sheila 1 after going through the Sylph Cave earlier. Got a Baron key, so that's a very very important item, since objective number 4 does require that Baron key, and so that's a very nice pickup for Nitz. And he also completed the Fabul defense, defeated Rubicante, got another Excalibur, which is another great dartable weapon for Edge. He could do plenty of damage by fighting, but there are certain fights, like if the wrong position Valvolus comes up, where having a really high-powered dartable weapon is really going to come in handy. And if not, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, I agree. Or you could hold out for a Cecil or two, because we do have the vanilla agility flag on, so if Cecil's in your party, he's your agility anchor. We can talk more about that at a later point. The short version is, without Cecil, you have more flexibility in your party management. With Cecil, you either need to work around him, or have a second Cecil who just kind of enjoys the real deep scent of Earth.
Looks like he decided to keep one of his Excaliburs, sell the other one to fund a bunch more Star Veils, have that in the bag. Very nice peace of mind item, just in case there's certain bosses where it's really good to have enough Star Veils on. And so he'll be well prepared in case he has to fight one of those in a nasty spot.
Yeah, having those Star Veils are a really helpful piece of, really helpful item to have. The Reflect is good, almost mandatory really, against bosses like Wyvern and Golbez, helpful against bosses like Bahamut, who's already taken out, but also Ashura, Leviathan in some spots. It is really important to go and have access to those. And Nitzguy unlocked the Baron Sewers and is now leaving. He is done with that location. He's going to go and check other spots.
Yeah, that's one of those where it's a pretty long. You have to walk through a dungeon. There's a cutscene and two bosses that you have to deal with, and the cutscene is particularly long in that place. It looks like he's going to at least do some more shopping in the Underworld at this point, heading on over to that dwarf castle, which is another gated item shop here. Finds elixirs. Nothing like not the high ticket items, not the Bakuses, not the sirens that we're really looking to find the final end game items that you're really looking for to just close out a seed.
Yeah, but Cure 2s are a good staple. They're much cheaper than Cure 3s, and you can use them. Yeah, in combat, you want to go and use your Cure 3s to heal up your team if you're getting low. Out of combat, you can just spam a bunch of Cure 2s. I love having a bunch of those for a lot of reasons. But yeah, not finding the big ticket Bacchus wines, hourglasses, sirens, coffins, all big ticket items can be in gated shops that are all extremely helpful. And we really would like to see some of those. Soma Drop is another good ticket item to find because that gives plus 10 MP. If we find a Tella and do a D machine grind, it's really, really helpful to go and move your Tella from 90 MP to 100 MP.
It's interesting. We've got access to Edge, so we will have a way to obtain sirens whether or not they're for sale, since he's able to steal them from the alert enemies in the Tower of Babel. And they're in trapped chests, so you can find them without having to turn on random encounters. And so that's one way that our runners could choose to do the grind.
Yep, it is a very valid way to go and do the grind. It is something that if I am stealing sirens, I'm either stealing sirens for getting up to a specific amount of experience to get warp on a character, or I'm stealing sirens for an end game grind, and I would really like to go and do that grind on the moon rather than on Earth, because on Earth you can go and find a fight that gives you 34,000 experience. 304,000 would be a lot more helpful. But on the moon, you can get fights that will go and have a base of around 90,000 experience between either Gold Dragons or the Triple Warlock fight, both requiring life glitches.
And speaking of life glitches, life potions found in Toria for nitzguy, and so that's good. Meanwhile, Gundampilotspaz has defeated Bahamut and will have an option to take another Yang and has completed that variant in to get that twin harp.
Yeah, we so far have a pretty dense cluster of really, and we've got Toria, Earth Crystal, Baron Key. Those are all of the overworld chains that we can go and get into, but not much else. And neither of our runners has peaked or deals, I believe, so neither of our runners has gotten any visibility as to who that final character is, or at least the final free character on the overworld.
And this routing is actually really interesting and favors Gundampilotspaz a little bit in that he hasn't gone over to Toria to do that loot of the treasury yet. And he can now kind of, when he wants to do it, he can put that check in along with the Twin Harp and the Tower of Zot checks, should he choose to do that all in one go. And so that's kind of a nice little kind of routing way that the randomizer kind of favored him so far.
Yeah, that's definitely going to go and help Gundampilotspaz, because limiting your number of trips to locations can easily save you a bunch of time.
Which is kind of the reason why nitzguy decided to do that Sylph Cave dive so early, knowing that that's at least one less trip to Kabul that he'll have to make.
Indeed. And meanwhile, we do go and have the excitement of nitzguy choosing to go into Cave Magnus. This is where well, we go and randomize a lot of things in a randomizer, so what's one more? We have Edward here, who goes and saves the party by playing the twin harp, or playing a tune on his harp, which resonates through the twin harp. And the vanilla game is a nice little somber tune, and the randomizer, it's turned into a number of different things, which some have been made by Boardface, our developer, and some have been also made by Calmlanity, our newest, not even newest, he's been on the team for a bit.
Yeah.
I don't know the words to say music director, except for music director. Words are hard, people.
We'll give him that title. And here, Yang's his claws are unaffected by the the magnets. So gonna use a vampire to off one of them. This is a scripted fight. You're supposed to lose, and so if you can knock out your own team members, that's going to be the fastest way to get through it. Unfortunately, we got the me attack you, so we've got to go through this. But never fear, we're gonna shut up for a little bit because it's just about time for DJ Spoony B's Rockin' Tunes.
And we're getting some of the Final Fantasy II battle theme. It's a really catchy tune. It's very different from the Final Fantasy 1. This has a bit more, I don't know, how would you describe it, Rex? A bit more trill, a bit more excitement to it?
Yeah, it's kind of just like a step up in intensity, I think, from the previous game. I really like it, and I think this Harp edition is amazing. We see Kane Azo as the boss here. This might be difficult if it wasn't for the fact that we have a super-powered Edge.
Kane Azo might go and come with a can-do attitude, but Edge just simply pushes them over.
Just next levels Kane Azo there.
Edge is very keen on going and really putting him under the water.
And we get that sand ruby, and so this is one. It is a key item, and especially if you're doing something like you're thinking that sirens are going to be the grind, you can't really not walk out of here, because you're going to want to get to that 10 key items if possible before you grind, because that gives you double experience. The sand ruby, even though it's not going to be anything that you need for any of the objectives that we've got today. And we don't have somebody in the party who knows exit. So we've got to walk out of here, which is a bit disappointing. But I agree with Nitz's choice to walk out of this place.
Yeah, it is really unfortunate. Exits are an item you can find in shops, but it's easy to go and spend a lot of time shopping around and not finding what you really need. And that, without seeing that Kaipo character, it's really easy to simply want to go and see that. Nitzguy is getting into their airship, choosing not to go up Zod, and is going over to, looks like Kaipo now, so they might be checking it to see if it is a black mage, because that is a really big character to go and have.
And that's a good point. That might be also the reason that Gundampilotspaz decided to do the Baron part of this chain, these overworld like rabbit hole items first, to see if there is a black mage or possibly a Tella as the character in Baron as well.
Nitzguy getting just flexed on by Kaipo having both kamikazes and exits. Two things that are extremely helpful in Cave Magnus.
Yeah, just a little bit too late. And I think that's a Palom, isn't that?
That's a Palom, all right. That is a black mage. It will take 100,000 experience to get this black mage warp, probably the hardest character to get warp on of the available characters. But at 36,000 or so experience, he's going to go and learn Quake, and boy howdy, is Quake a great spell.
Yeah, he gets the Quake really early. You crack a few eggs, he'll get enough experience to get to the warp, and then you can do the warp glitch in the Dwarf Castle. We've got an option to get those eggs through that stealing that we had mentioned before. So, yeah, really nicely done here. Meanwhile, Gundampilotspaz is going to have a way to use exit because he still has Porum in his party, and Porum just learned exit after defeating Mylon and friends here in Fabul, and I think he just found a Palom as well.
That is a really lucky break for both of our runners, to be entirely honest. Two very different routes, both to the same conclusion. The Gundampilotspaz is going to get potentially a different key item here. There are 17 items in the key item pool. In addition, there's the pass, and then there's a whole bunch of other things that are not key items that can still be really important or just really helpful. So
yeah, for example, we saw that Stardust rod in the Antlion Cave.
Yeah, I imagine Gundampilotspaz is going to be real happy to have a Palom to use that now. Meanwhile, nitzguy has gone and finished his trip to Kaipo and is heading. Looks like they're going indecisive. They're heading to Antlion Cave, which they did not do.
Yeah, so he's going to get a Stardust Rod to use on his newly acquired Black Mage as well. Now, the interesting thing, it looks like heading to the northwest, Gundampilotspaz is going to head to Toria. He may go to that treasury. He might go straight to Cave Magnus as well.
Yeah, this is kind of as a bit of edge case optimization. That is, again, this is the benefit of hindsight from being in this position. I can see it being better technically to go to Zot first if you only have Rosa in your party, just because that will go and get you exit on Rosa. That is the only way she learns exit. She needs to go and complete Zot for her to learn that spell. Very easy to not think of in the moment. I would probably have done the same thing our runners have, not having exit before I walked in there. But it is an interesting scenario to have, to be entirely honest.
And, well, Gundampilotspaz still has that choice because he hasn't done Cave Magnus or... Like, I mentioned that he just learned exit on Forum, but he ditched Forum for Palom. So he is also without exit at this point. And he's going to go to Zot. I bet he's going to do the treasury first. But we'll see. Yeah, he's heading over to the treasury, so yeah.
Wait, that's treasury!
We have had a second rendition of our secret project that some of us have been... by some of us, I mean a certain person named Dathis has been going and leading the charge on.
Yeah,
so thank you to Dathis.
Yeah, I'm happy to lend my voice to it, even if tonight was my first time hearing the full thing, and that was awesome. So very fun. Thank you, Dathis, for contributing that little bit. Since we've been raiding that treasury throughout this entire event, and it's really fun to see that. And so he's doing the full loop just like we saw nitzguy do earlier. Now Nitz is heading up the Tower of Zot. We're going to get 2 character checks up here, but I think at this point, barring perhaps Atella, or depending on how the characters value a Cecil, there's not going to be a whole lot of change. I think they're probably pretty content with the parties that they respectively have at this point. What are your thoughts on characters once we're this far into a seed, Baka?
I don't mind switching. Like, if I had Porman find Rosa here, I would actually absolutely switch her out. But for the rest of the team, it's going to go and come down really hard to how well can I gear them out. We don't have that amazing of weapons for Sid. Young is going to be really hungry for experience, so I wouldn't be upset switching him out for something like a Kane, perhaps. But I'm with you. It's going to take a fair bit for me to want to go and change this party up. I would be looking to go and get rid of Sid potentially, just based on if I go and get a third melee fighter, I can get Bacchus wines either by stealing them or by equipping, or by finding them in a shop and purchasing them. Hallam, if I don't take him up to nuke, well, he's not that fast, so a curse ring is more than enough to turn him into a good anchor for this team. Sid is, I mean, again, Sid, if I find a good melee fighter, I would definitely go and take him over that, or the new melee fighter over Sid. If I find two Cecils, I will take two Cecils and them, Sid and Yang.
Especially with that Excalibur sitting in this guy's inventory, right?
Exactly. That is a huge thing to go and get.
And looks like we are getting some Baron guards up at the Mega Sisters spot. These guards are cheesable with a few items. If you've got access to mute bells, you can mute the nasty counterattacks, the magic counterattacks that they use. If you've got coffins, you can one-shot them. They're vulnerable to all sorts of status effects like Toad, Piggy, that sort of thing. So the world's your oyster. The other thing that you could do is also hit them real hard with a full powered edge.
Yeah, these bosses, unlike other bosses, do not have the boss bit. They're actually just a random encounter that you also fight in the vanilla game. They're in the Baron End fight defending Yang, but we go and throw them in the boss pool, even though they're not fully prepared to be bosses, so we can go and do really mean things to them sometimes.
Yeah, and if you happen to find a mute knife, some mute arrows, or a rune axe, they do 4 times damage to the guards. So that would be nice if you happen to find them. I don't remember seeing them on either of our runners' screens, and it looks like that might be that defense sword that Gundampilotspaz has decided to equip. And now Gundampilotspaz, his party is really decked out, maybe even more than nitzguy1's, due to the fact that he's got that cane in the party, which really makes use of the other really good equipment that we saw in that treasury that nitzguy1 doesn't have anybody to equip it to.
Yeah, that is. I think this guy might have actually sold the equipment because I believe we were at the point where we could see a cane. No, right? This guy never went up Mount Hobbs.
He didn't go up Mount Hobbs, yeah.
Yeah, and the size counter is really annoying because it goes and turns your character into a Lilliputian, and you have minimal attack power. Literally, you have the minimum attack power, and you take double damage from physical attack in addition to having your defense kind of nullified.
Yeah, both runners running into those nasty counterattacks. This is where the Magus Sisters are in the vanilla game, and their primary attack is magic, so a bit more success that these guards have with their status effects than you would in some other spots, just by the nature of this being a pretty decent magic stat boss in general.
Yeah,
Ooh, there is Tella.
Tella is really hard. You have Edge already, but I would be tempted to give up Yang or Sid because Tella is a great anchor. Throw a curse ring on him, he's going to be great. He does so much with all of his spells. You don't have to grind up to get warp like you're going to have to do on Palom. And he also has Berserk, which can be really helpful. Having 2 sources of Berserk in a party that wants to go and do Zerker strats and Zeromus is really helpful.
He also has Blink, a very useful spell that you don't even need to complete Mount Ordeals for it to be useful. Decides to ditch the worst character in the game, Yang, for Tella, and so I always approve of that.
Yeah, it's hard to go and disagree. At this point, Yang needs so much experience in order to go and do appreciable damage. Just again, his attack power is based on his level. It's literally 2 times his level plus his strength divided by 4. That's his attack power. And level 10, he's got 5 base or 20 base attack power. Level 20, he's got 40 base attack power. Tella with a power staff has 40 base attack power.
And that curse ring couldn't be thrown on Tella fast enough for this guy. Going to be interesting to see. Now, Gundampilotspaz is a bit different party makeup. We'll see if he wants the old man as well.
Yeah, I think the best person for Gundampilotspaz to remove would be Sid?
Yeah, probably Sid. But decides he doesn't want the old man. He's happy with the team as is. And looks like we've got a vanilla Valvolus here. Dathus was here just a moment ago. Must have been infecting this seed.
We play his special a special lead-in, and he goes and does this to our seed. Dathis, you cruel, cruel fiend. Then again, we do have the option of bypassing one of the worst parts of Valvalis, which is when she spins, she goes and gets, well, pretty much perfect magic evade in this spot, and really high physical evasion. You can bypass that with commands that go and don't do a normal calculation for attack. What I mean is, aim does not do a normal attack command calculation. It sets your accuracy to the maximum of 255, and Rosa will hit. There is no chance for Valvalis to evade. Rosa will just simply override any evade and just straight hit. Edge, he can throw. That's going to go and bypass going and checking to see if he needs to hit something, because throws always hit. It's just Edge's level times the attack power of the weapon he throws, which is why I was chalking up those train spears. Or you can just cast Berserk on Edge and let him go to town.
Yeah, if you get your own damage high enough, you can avoid the defense buff that she has in her spin form as well. So very nicely done there. Both of our runners making short work of the Fiend of Air here, and so they're very close. The difference is Gundampilotspaz hasn't completed Cave Magnus. Kind of dipped his toes in there, but decided to back out when he did. It turns out that it's just the sand ruby there, not a required item. We'll see if he decides to prioritize that later. He might have been waiting to do exactly what you had been mentioning a little bit before, Baka, waiting until he's got a character that has exit in order to do that, so he doesn't have to walk out.
Yeah, I think he might have walked in there and puttered around a bit, but decided against staying there. While he's going back towards the Toria area, it looks like he's landing. He is probably going into that Cave Magnus now with exit. Hey, a train spear.
Yeah, there's that train spear for you. And nitzguy decides to head up Mount Ordeals, wants to fully power that old man.
I absolutely like this check because one, fully powered old man does a lot of work. He is a very good character that, as long as you're not relying on him to go and do damage most. Oh my goodness, a Soma drop and a coffin. 2 Soma drops give the old man some great MP.
If he had Keen in the party, I'd recommend that would be where the other one would go. Dark Knight Cecil. He still has one of those Excaliburs, doesn't he?
Oh, this seems like such a hard... And getting rid of Sid. Sid is... Friendship ended with Sid. New friendship started with Cecil.
Yeah, with the Excal in the inventory, I totally get this play. I probably wouldn't make it because I'm on the team Never Cecil, but I can totally understand it. Excalibur Cecil, if you get him to the magic number for agility with Cecil, if you want to use him, is probably 28, and that's what, level 45-ish. He gets that number, and then he's still a pretty decent level for doing endgame damage, especially if he's wielding an Excalibur or a Crystal Sword, and he doesn't really hurt the agility calculations that much. But that Cursed Ring Tella now, he's great for his usefulness throughout a lot of the rest of the fights, but at the end of the game in that Threemus fight, he's kind of a liability now.
He can still go and do a D-Machine grind, which it's going to be a toss-up if we don't go and find any sirens anywhere. That will go and make it harder. You have to go and invest that time for Edge to steal all the sirens, so maybe it becomes better. And the other advantage of a D-Machine grind is you can do what's called a slingshot, where if a character is 5 or more levels behind the median party level, they will be getting double experience until they catch up. If you get all of your experience in one fight, they get all of the experience doubled. So you can go and, say, get 700,000 experience in a fight to take your Palom up to nuke levels, and then go and give all of that to a level 1 Rydia, who is now getting 1.4 million. Also, this is... Someone's laughing, and it's not nitzguy.
We also get a little bit of a reprise of that lovely Final Fantasy II battle music going right now, while Galvez is laughing.
Ooh, and taking out Edge, which is... Ooh, you are not left with the characters you want in this fight. You have... Tella still has the curse string, so he's going to be incredibly slow, and Cecil is anchoring. So, Tella is probably not getting any turns anytime soon.
It might depend on who Golbez targets with his first attack. I think he might be okay now. Yeah, we get the Star Veil up. We should be able to get through this fight at this point.
Winning the 50-50, which is really important.
Yes.
Dark Knight Cecil not quite going and beating Golbez in one swing of his sword and one of Golbez's spells, but next swing Golbez is going to probably go down because this spot only has a few thousand HP. You do, however, have to hit Golbez. He's not going to die on his own. Golbez is a bit weird. He has an extreme amount of HP, and he doesn't die until you do enough damage to be what the spot has for HP, and then you directly hit him because his Y script is a counterattack.
Gundampilotspaz defeats Kainazo and is posed with the same situation as nitzguy. Do you walk out or do you reset after getting an item? And again, I think the same as with nitzguy, it makes just more sense to keep the item, especially since we've completed the Tower of Zot now. So Gundampilotspaz does have exit on the Rosa. That's a storyline gain of the spell exit. Rosa will not learn exit unless you complete the Tower of Zot. So completing that just makes her that much more useful. Without completing Zot, that's one of the edges that that Porum actually has over Rosa. She learns exit naturally through leveling up, and Rosa does not.
Yeah, definitely a very big thing to go and have. Just exit is such a big spell. It's a part of the reason why Tella is really helpful. He goes and comes with exit. It lets you go and do a lot of early game looting, and Paladin Cecil will learn exit naturally, so also helpful. Noticing Gundampilotspaz dipping into Sylph Cave and walking on some damaged tiles and then going over. I don't know exactly what he's getting himself prepared. He is he's getting prepared to kill off all of his team except for Edge to steal Sirens.
Yeah, wants to be as quick as possible in this fight and just not having to worry about any other character taking turns, having to do inputs. We just get Edge as often as possible. This is a pretty heads-up play, not something that I often consider, but this is a smart way of dealing with the latent time that's spent in a battle where you're just trying, the only thing you want to do is have him go sneak, sneak, sneak every single round.
Yep. Also, Gundam Pilot getting cued in that his inventory is full. If you try and steal items when your inventory is full, you will not get the Sirens you need. You need to have at least 2 free spots. One for the first pickup, and a second free spot for the second pickup. Also, the reason why Edge is healed up, you can die if you go and get hit by that failed and take some single-digit damage.
Yeah, that's an annoying way to die for sure.
And we see nitzguy is going and giving his Cecil a crystal, an Excalibur, a power shirt, and a crystal ring. Cecil is going to go and do some good damage.
Even at level 1 with this setup, Cecil is a force to be reckoned with.
Yes. To give a bit of scale, the Excalibur is the second highest, most damaging weapon, or most powerful weapon in the game, with an attack power of 160. The third strongest weapon is Kane's White Spear, with an attack power of 106.
Well, third most, as if you're not counting the spoon.
Okay, excuse me. Vanilla equipable weapon. Spoon is the highest with a maximum
Sure.
attack power of 255. Crystal Sword is second with an attack power of 200. And then the Crystal Sword. And we do have the Flygon that allows Eddie to use the spoon. It'll just simply set his attack power to 255. Pretty helpful if you want to go and do extreme amounts of damage with Eddie, but you do need to baby him for a bit because he is not going to be able to survive many hits at all.
Looks like we're having Nitz heading over to the Dwarf Castle. Now, one of the advantages of powering up Tella means that he doesn't need to wait until we get to those really high levels for Palom to learn Warp. Tella will have access to the warp spell, which means you can do the warp glitch once you complete the tower, or excuse me, not the tower, the dwarf castle, 2 boss fights. You can use warp, and the way that the game was programmed, this crystal room that Nitzguy is in right now, basically shares the location here in Dwarf Castle and the one in the sealed cave are the same room. So once this sequence is completed, you can use warp, get right back in here, and grab what other item is there. And so that's a really useful in this particular flag set, since we allow that. And having somebody with warp becomes finding somebody with warp before you do Dwarf Castle is very important to this flag set.
Yep. Speaking of very important, Star Veils, because there's Wyvern. One of the reasons why you might not want Cecil in your party is because his vanilla agility can really make things painful for you. To go into depth about agility slightly, there is a maximum speed to how much faster anything can be than the anchor, and that is 5 times faster than the anchor. The anchor is always set to 5 ATB ticks, and it takes 5 ATB ticks for the anchor to get a turn. Everyone else's, based on what their agility is, will either take more or less ATB ticks. But if you have a very low agility anchor, like 5 agility, and then you try and go and have someone take turns, any character who has something around 20 agility is going to be as fast as anything that has something around 60 agility. It can be very important to go and do for that Wyvern fight, as you saw, because Wyvern's first action, cast Mega Nuke. Some spots he just does max damage, and the only way to survive it is to go and get a Star Veil up.
Yeah, just kind of a quirk of how the agility system in this game works in general, with that the scaling, but only to a point, is kind of just a weird thing, like how they decided to do it. We did see the character be another edge here in Dwarf Castle. Nitz thought for quite a while, like, what do I want to do? Because he knows that he's still got some good equipment for that second edge. And ultimately decides to take the second ninja and ditch Palom. Looks like he's planning on going with a lot of berserkers throughout this endgame.
That's a really with Tella and Rosa, you have the means to go in berserk characters, so that's not too bad. And with just being able to do damage, you don't need as much experience to get your characters to good damage dealing levels than you do with mages. Mages, you have to go and take to the top tier spell. Holy!
Ooh, that is a prize.
So I was gonna say, you have to take the top tier spells for the mages to do great damage, or you can go and have people like Cecil who get their crystal sword and have nuke on a stick.
And an Avenger.
This is not progression, but this is going to advance Nitzguy's game really far.
Yeah, we have Super Cecil engaged right now.
Right now, the only character that matters in addition to Cecil is now Rosa, because Cecil's job is going to be to equip the crystal sword, switch mid-fight to the Avenger, and then just burn through everything, and Rosa's job is going to be keep Cecil alive.
Oh, wow. Okay, that was something. Now, Gundampilotspaz did get the eggs to get Palom up to warp. Now, because I don't believe that he's done. He didn't take Tella. He doesn't have the old man. He doesn't have the incentive to go to Mount Ordeals that Nitzguy did. So he didn't see the Cecil there. Doesn't have the Paladin. He's going to see this crystal sword. He's going to see this Avenger. He does have Kane who can use the Avenger, so that's nice. But that crystal sword, it's really pretty. It sells for a lot of money, but unless he's got a reason to go to Mount Ordeals, I don't see him going there.
Yeah, that Ordeals is an easy to fade spot because it's 3 bosses for 1 key item. We saw Golbez there, so that's another fight that is just easy to say, I don't want to do this. This takes so long. There are cutscenes in this fight. It's really easy to go and do that. And
I see a question in chat. Esporo fight. What does Avenger add to this? The Avenger has like some good stat buffs, but the main thing that it brings is it gives auto berserk to whoever is equipped with it. So if you start, and Avenger is also kind of bugged a little bit in that any sort of effect or buff that the original weapon had, when you equip it to when you switch to the Avenger mid combat and let it start doing its berserk on its own, whatever buffs and bonuses you've got from that original weapon carry over to that auto berserk status. So it just makes whatever you're doing amplified. And so starting the fight with the crystal sword, switching to the Avenger during the battle, that's Cecil doing maximum damage, basically.
Yeah, Berserk is plus 50% damage, just when it's just a straight buff to attack power. And whenever the turn comes up, you don't have to go and put anything in. It'll just automatically attack for the damage. Just character will automatically attack when they're berserked. And because the Avenger automatically berserks the character who's holding it, it's really helpful. And you can get the same effects from going and equipping an Avenger by berserking your character, where if you change equipment and don't enter a command, the game never goes and updates your character stats. And if you can queue up a berserk and do that, you can go and be punching with your bare hands with Crystal Sword power if you put it back into your inventory. The Avenger just goes and makes it really easy because you take off your equipment, you put on the Avenger, you're instantly berserked.
It's also nice specifically for the Threemus fight. One of the command or effects that Threemus has in the pack is the black hole, which removes all statuses, including berserk. But the Avenger, since it grants auto berserk to whatever character is using it, you don't need to re-up that berserk afterwards, and we'll still get that boosted attack throughout the fight.
Yep, it is extremely helpful. And now we see nitzguy is going and just stealing a whole bunch of sirens himself, which will be going probably a bit faster than it did for Gundam Pilot, just because he has 2 edges.
Yeah, that's nice. I didn't check exactly how many sirens Gundampilotspaz ended up taking. I don't know like how much more grind that he has afterwards. We still are quite a ways away from go mode. We haven't found either side of the forge side. We haven't found the hook for launching the Falcon, and we're still panless. So we could still have a lot of seed to go. We might be gaining a lot of extra levels, and it looks like Gundam's Pilot only leveled up enough to get to that warp glitch level. It might be kind of hedging. If we've got a lot of the seed left to go, you might be able to gain a lot of that experience through fighting the bosses, especially if we end up having to fight a lot of bosses on the moon. Conversely, if you invest in a bit of a grind, more of a grind earlier, all of the boss fights that you have later on will go that much faster. So it's a balancing act that you have to weigh, and that's just one of the balances that you've got to put into place if you want to play free Enterprise.
I agree, and with the of the spots that we haven't seen, we have not checked, to my knowledge, the top of tower, the basement throne and baron, and the 2 Feymarch bosses. Of those, the Feymarch bosses are pretty much moon boss levels, so I can see wanting to be able to grind up to good levels to get up to deal with them. Nitzguy finding a Masamune as well in that alert chest. I'm guessing Gundampilotspaz also probably found that.
He did.
That is going to be really nice. That is really unfortunate that Gundam Pilot did not keep both edges then, because he has some decent equipment for them at that point.
I think the fact that he did it after he did that bit of a grind kind of changed like his priorities in his party. I think he didn't want to consider taking more party members at this point. I think it's at least from what I see, it looks like he might think, this is my party, I'm good with this, let's go.
Yeah, that is something I can understand that thinking, but it's when you look at the numbers for how much experience you need to go from, to get to level 29, you need 100,000 experience. To get to level 52 for Palom, this is just for Palom, because each character has their own experience tables. For Palom, to get to level 29, you need 100,000 experience. To to get Paladin Nuke at 52, you need 900,000 experience. And when you're below the medium party level, you're getting double experience. It is really easy to go and catch up characters with this, and if they end up 1 or 2 levels behind your party at the end game, that's pretty minor to just having a better suited team, in my opinion. So there is a bit. It is easy to get stuck on the sunk cost fallacy, in my opinion, is I guess the point I'm trying to make.
Well, there's the sum cost fallacy, but there's also the, is this the party? Like, what do you want to do? What strategies are you most comfortable with as well? He's got a really balanced party right now. He's got a good anchor in Sid. He's got a great white mage, a great black mage, and a couple good damage dealers with melee. And that balance is also pretty important. Now, you can definitely go, we've seen people beat this game with any combination of characters that are possible, from a lonely, like low-level single Edward to the most overpowered of vanilla parties in the game, and everything in between. But doing what you, if you go too far out of your comfort zone, especially in a race, an elimination race like this, you don't want to put yourself under, you're already under that much pressure. If you've got a party that you feel comfortable with, it might not be worth switching up because of that as well.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And we are finding both our runners going up the tower at the same time now. Gundampilotspaz getting up faster, while this guy is just trailing behind, both finding Ashura up here. We still haven't found a rune axe, have we?
I don't think so. I don't think we've found mute arrows either, or an elven bow. Like any of the sort of damage, the mage of the mage seeker enemies, we just haven't seen. We might have to go with the vanilla game strategy of double wall, using the star veils as the proxy for the wall spell here.
Yeah, you can technically bypass it by doing something called life locking, where right after Ashura goes and casts life 1, if you attack her, you'll go and get her to spin back, but it looked like Gundampilotspaz timed
that looked
that
like a rune axe.
Yeah, and he does have a rune axe, so he is going to go and be doing quadruple damage with Sid, but that timing didn't work out. From my side, it looked like he was on the timing for keeping that life lock going, but a turn must have passed or something, and Ashura, getting to the red face, casts Cure 4 and heals all the damage. So now we're going to be going and getting this under control. Damage is going to be coming out, and Gundampilotspaz is probably going to be able to take care of this as long as he can keep up with healing.
This is a really interesting race so far. There's been a couple points, both here in the Tower of Zot, where our runners had gone in very different routes to get there, but they meet up at these key points of the race, and they're very close right now. Like, if you're looking at that key item pool, the same things are lit up for both runners. That little edge that Nitz had earlier, where he had completed the Cave Magnus, but Gundampilotspaz hadn't, has kind of been erased, because that grind that Gundampilotspaz did allowed him to get through that dwarf castle fight really quickly as well, and that while nitzguy was doing a little bit of stealing in the meantime. So one strategy and another, very different ways of getting here, but here we are at the same place.
Yeah, this is... I think at this point, nitzguy has the Ordeals check to Gundampilot's Barren Castle check, and otherwise they have hit the same key item spots.
Well, we're going to see Gundampilotspaz has defeated Ashura, and we're going to get that key item check. This could be huge, and it is huge. That Darkness Crystal is a big game. Now the moon is available to our runners, so that they can either do those, we've got those 3 spots still on the blue planet if they want to do it, or they can go up to the moon, the giant. There's so many places where they can go. There's a ton of key item checks up on the moon.
Yeah, and Gundampilotspaz is at 7 key items, but with the 2 Famouch bosses and Odin's spot being the ones left on Earth, I can see just wanting to go up to the moon, going and getting some either grind on Earth and go up to the moon, or go up to the moon and grind, to be a very attractive option. That said, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, there's also that shop that's available on the moon, one of the gated shops we haven't seen Bacchus wines for sale yet. We haven't seen sirens for sale yet. We haven't seen hourglasses for sale yet. And that might dictate if any of those are available in that, in that moon shop. That might dictate where they want to do for the rest of their grind as well.
Yeah, that is a really fair point. And this guy demonstrating that, no, you're trapped in this tower. You have to go and walk out if you're sorry.
Oh yeah, there is the one other place that Gundampilotspaz didn't go that this guy did, and he's going there now, and that's Mount Ordeal. So he's going to see that Cecil there. I don't think he's gone to a shop to sell that Crystal Sword and Avenger yet. This is going to be really interesting. If we saw him decide, even with that extra Mazamune in his inventory, that he doesn't want Edge. Is he going to say no to Cecil with a Crystal Sword in his inventory? And
Yeah.
he does.
No hesitation. There is no trepidation. It is just no to Cecil. I said no to another Edge. I'm saying no to Cecil.
Big respect for me. Team never Cecil.
Yeah, he does have the advantage of. Have we seen dolls anywhere? Because when I'm going through my mental list of fights, dolls is one of those fights that I really, really, absolutely want to go and have a Black Mage for, because doing AoE damage with Quake is really helpful for just taking care of that right out. With melee fighters, it gets really awkward.
And especially since we haven't found hourglasses for sale, because that's another way to kind of cheese that boss as well.
Yeah, so that could be something that ends up working out really well for Gundampilotspaz and just having that freedom. Gundampilotspaz is not going to have to play fair agility like Nitzguy is. Granted, Nitzguy is going to go and play unfair damage because he has a Crystal Sword Cecil.
Yeah, damage versus agility. That's what we're looking at right now.
If there's a second Cecil on the moon that Nitzguy takes, which I would be all for a variety of reasons, that can really go and change things. That, taking Cecil is a risk, because with one, you either have to anchor with them or play fair agility. Both of them are difficult things to do sometimes, because you have to either making sure that you're keeping Cecil dead, or have the right equipment and curse string in your inventory to go and just completely lower all of Cecil's agility. Well, there's those stalls I was talking about, by the way.
Don't have to worry about them anymore.
No demist found yet.
Yeah, this guy doing a little bit of a hunt to see if that Demus is one of these easy spots that neither of our runners have checked yet.
Yep, that is really good to go and do. That is a heads-up play. Just having a lone Demist around with that item it can spell disaster. Going in, speaking as someone who went and skipped a Demist who had a Darkness Crystal on a Kinazo at Rubicant hook route, it can change things a lot.
So it looks like Nitzguy, after doing those couple checks there, is going to head up to the moon.
And that's going to go and get him. Well, we're going to see the character up there. Meanwhile, Golbez has done some very rude things to Gundampilotspaz's team, and he got Edge up. He's darting an Excalibur, and that is enough to go and make Golbez question his life decisions.
I also commend that play. Not that, we might think there's so many tough boss spots left, and that Excalibur is such a high value item. But it's like, if you don't use it and you die, that's going to be worse than not having it in the later fight, I think. So using it, make sure you don't need to go ahead and reset and do potential. I don't know if he saved after the first fight on Mount Ordeals. So this could have been just a really smart play, to make sure that you get through the fight anyways.
Yeah, definitely. Your stuff doesn't do you any good if you never use it.
Mm-hmm. Speaking as somebody who, growing up, always had 99 of basically every item that I never wanted to use because it's too good to use.
Mm-hmm.
Playing Free Enterprise really changed the way that I look at consumable items.
Yeah, and Gundampilotspaz, seeing that it's just a crystal ring on Ordeals and resetting, so he's keeping that Excalibur. That might be why he was so free to use it, but didn't see the boss. We know it's not Demus, so it's not going to hurt him, but that is a bit of a blind spot for Gundampilotspaz at the moment.
Yeah, that might be in the back of his mind if this ends up pushing really late. as far as the checks go. We see Kane as the character on the moon. Now, Nitzguy never went to Mount Hobbs and didn't see that Kane earlier that Gundampilotspaz has. See if he wants it. And Old Man Tella gets the boot. Now that we've got the playing fair anchor of Cecil, one of the main uses of Tella being that he's a very good agility anchor for the end game is out the window. We've got the white mage who's got access to that berserk and everything like that. You're getting a little bit of flexibility gone with Tella no longer being in the party because he's got a lot of utility spells that he can cast that you don't have access to anymore. However, you get a lot more power with that white spear cane.
And we did find Bacchus wines in the moon shop, so we have alternate sources of berserk right now. Nitzguy has a very nice me smash party. Another thing I like about Kane, and this is not necessarily as obvious, Kane ends up really speedy. Kane and Edge are both very quick characters, and one of the things that can really help with a Threemus fight is having characters who are faster than your anchor. If Nitzguy manages his Cecil well and only lets him go up to that 28 agility, he's going to be able to go and do some really good damage to Threemus.
Yeah, having your Zerkers be like a higher level Kane and Edge, who just naturally has a huge agility stat to start with, makes it so that the Berserker strat with the 28 agility Cecil is just that much better than relying on somebody like, for example, Sid, who we have been seeing through a lot of this seed so far. So that's just one way of kind of improving what's already a decent strategy.
Yeah, and Gundampilotspaz flexing, selling the crystal sword, is committed to not having Cecil, which is definitely a valid strategy because of that fair agility.
And after that reset, it had to come, right?
After getting rid of Cecil on Mount Ordeals as you're going up it with a crystal sword in inventory, yeah, it's Gundampilotspaz is not going to go and be going for the fair agility game.
And again, it's just one of those kind of fascinating things how we see two runners presented with the same seed, like the same randomization for both of them, and just like having completely different takes on what to do here. And like you're presented with what is basically in the vanilla game the most powerful thing that you can do, which is a crystal sword Cecil, and you just don't get it.
Yeah, and to answer a question from chat, it looks like we had a small hiccup.
I think we're back now.
Yeah, it looks like we're back. Ooh, and finding Ogopogo at the random spot, that is yuck. But to answer a question from chat, how many Cecils are too many? In my opinion, the best number of Cecils is either more than 2, then 0, then 1. Because with more than 2 Cecils, you can go and kill off a Cecil, keep him at low agility, stack a whole bunch of minus agility gear on him, and he will go and let the rest of your team be incredibly fast. When those Cecils like Gundampilotspaz, he can go and just use whoever he wants for his anchor, like that Sid that he has in his team. With 1, Nitzguy is forced to go and play fair agility in this Ogopogo fight, which is going very, very meanly for him. And it is going to be a bit of an uphill battle to win this fight, just because you can't go and guarantee the number of turns you're getting compared to the boss. The boss is going to outspeed you in these moon spots, and is going to go and be a fight.
And looking at these HP levels, Nitzguy is a bit underleveled. Now, he's a bit overpowered as far as the gear goes, but his actual levels are pretty low compared to what the moon kind of expects you to be for the stats and attack scripts that we've got on the moon. Fighting Ogopogo, a moon boss, with lunar stats is going to be scary no matter what. In this situation, it's even worse, and yeah, looks like that was just a bit too much. Might have to try something else first before going back to that particular boss spot.
Yeah, if he might be going out to grind, which is going to go and get him some good experience, though. He is going further back. Where is he? Okay, he is going to go and use a siren here. This is going to summon 2 gold dragons. Does Nitzguy have hourglasses?
I'm not sure, and it looks like he's just going for straight attacking. He does have that crystal sword, but it's not.
Sorry.
Go ahead. You take it.
I was just going to say, he also has a crystal ring, which might be going and helping out significantly on this fight. So the King Ryus, they have a script of attack, blitz, attack, blitz. They counterattack physical attacks with entangle. It is a paralyzed spell, but crystal rings prevent paralyze. The other issue we're also seeing is that they have a lot of resistances, and Edge actually is doing air elemental damage because he has a full moon, which I believe these King Ryus are resisting a bit. And
yeah, without the hourglasses, these King Ryus are a bit dangerous, as we're seeing come to light in this fight here.
yeah, they are. Gold dragons are not a joke, and the blitz attack does 50% of your character's maximum HP as damage, unless you have some form of resistance to it. Oh, and getting an entangle off on Rosa, that is rather dicey, just because Cecil kills one of them. That's going to get a good infusion of experience. Now we're going to go and see blitzes come out, and Rosa's kind of locked down and not in a position to go and heal up.
This is where having access to those Cure 3s that we found earlier can really help if necessary. But it looks like able to get through that fight, gets a decent amount of levels on 4 of the 5 party members, and that's going to help a lot.
Yeah, Kane went from level 10 to level 30, gaining 20 levels. He got that slingshot and has his party back up, but is going to go and need to heal up. This is going to be a bit of a slow grind for nitzguy, just because you have to do these fights fairly, which is never what you actually want to do. Playing fair is it's dangerous. It means you're actually going to go and take damage and have to recover from it.
Yeah, these King Ryus being very dangerous for this grind too. If he doesn't have hourglasses, one thing that he might want to check is if he's got some mute bells in his inventory, or can get a spot where Rosa can cast mute relatively quickly. There's a few levels up you can fight. Use the siren to find 3 warlocks, and if you can mute them, they're a very safe fight, even if you're lacking that rune axe that we saw earlier in the run.
Yeah, that's something that with a curse ring and maybe a dwarf axe or a drain sword, you can go and reduce Cecil's agility low enough. He's not going to be able to do the big damage you want from him, but if you can go and get Cecil really low on agility and put Rosa in the middle slot, Rosa will get the first turn, have her cast mute, lower your battle speed to make sure that you can get the first action, have her cast mute, and that's it. The warlocks are now in a very safe position until it gets down to the last one, and then they start punching.
Gundampilotspaz finding the bonus round in the vanilla Ogopogo spot with this D-Mist. Very nice find. This is a very dangerous spot. The stats are very strong for this location. It's got very good agility, very good strength. The nice thing about it is it's got this script where it'll attack 3 times, then turn into mist where you can't hit it at all. This mist, it's annoying if you're trying to use like Bacchus Wines and berserk up your party a lot, but if you're going at a bit lower levels like Gundampilotspaz is, it gives you time for recovery. You can use your healing spells. We saw an illusion come out, and you can set up and just wait and then tank the 3 hits, recover, and repeat. It might not be the fastest fight, but it's safer than a lot of other fights that you could have seen at this point. Plus, you'll get an extra key item check in the Village Mist once you defeat Misty.
Yeah, that is the big point I want to highlight. Is this is not going to be the fastest fight, unfortunately, because, as you said, you can't go and do those big berserks that you want, because if you berserk, you're going to be burning time on cold mist counters and taking significant damage here, to be entirely honest. This is going to hurt a fair bit. And turning into mist. Hound did go down. Nitzguy, in the meantime, is grinding up. He is going to go and have a lot of levels. He is going to have much easier time when he gets to these bosses, but it is going to take a bit of time for him to get there.
Yeah, this is the same balance that we saw earlier where Gundampilotspaz did some grinding before doing Dwarf Castle. And so this is kind of the counter side of it. He had done a little bit more grinding earlier, and now Nitz is kind of playing catch up with the levels. And now as overtaken him, but Gundampilotspaz a little bit more prepped for this. Plus, as we've been mentioning throughout a lot of this second half of this seed, the unfair agility that Gundampilotspaz gets to achieve that Nitzguy doesn't might mean that Gundampilotspaz is a little bit better equipped to handle some of these bosses at a little lower levels than Nitzguy might have been otherwise.
Yeah, doing a really rough balance in Free Enterprise is knowing when you can win a fight and when you can go and what you can do if there's something you can do to win a fight much faster. Gundampilotspaz opening up his inventory and darting an Excalibur is going to go and help him win the fight much faster. 5,000 damage coming out is really helpful. And Nitzguy is showing the other side of that balance of he might be able to win that Ogopogo fight, though it is going to be much harder for him. And just getting his characters up is going to let it be much faster for him because that Crystal Sword Cecil is swinging for 3,000 damage just every swing. So Nitzguy is going to have the better damage to get through fights shortly. But Gundampilotspaz has gone through. This is the second fight he's going to be getting through before Nitzguy is really going to be able to start one, I think.
Yeah, we're getting to the point where it becomes, where are those important key items? Because we still haven't found what we needed. We still don't have either part of that board. We still haven't found the hook. We still haven't found the pan. And we're starting to, even on the moon, we saw that Artemis bow from the Leviathan that Gundampilotspaz has beaten. That Ogopogo is going to be, like, it's a scary fight, but it's becoming like the importance placed on that position gets higher and higher the later we get to the seed.
Yeah, the Ogopogo blocking 2 key items is incredibly rude because he could be blocking Pan and Hook, and Pan can go be blocking a part of the Legend Sword, so you have to do it no matter what.
And we've been sitting on that rat tail for a long time too. The Hook gets you not only the Launch the Falcon option, but potentially another thing, like maybe the Pan behind that rat tail.
Yeah, that's a great point. Just we saw a good number of key items to start. We started with a Magma Key, we got Twin Harp from Footbool, we got a Baron Key from that chest in Feymarch, we got an Earth Crystal from the chest in Feymarch, and a Baron Key somewhere else early. And then they kind of dried up until we found the Rat Tail and the Darkness Crystal.
Yeah, the early mid-game part, after that initial rust was very void of what we were looking for. Now here we've got that second round for Nitzguy against that nasty Nope Rope, the Ogopogo, the Canadian Destroyer, still putting out a lot of damage, but Nitzguy able to put out a lot of damage too.
And he's able to put out a lot of healing with Cure 4. 4-digit healing across the board for the entire team. Kane might be down, but he's able to go and keep up his team. As long as Rosa doesn't go down to some rude punches, Nitzguy's going to be able to get through this without too much issue, I think.
And those Bacchus wines being purchased on the moon, really making it so that you can get all of these berserkers in their berserk stated as quickly as possible. It's been very, very effective and doing just tons of damage to the Ogopogo here. I think Nitzguy's in very good shape to beat this fight.
Yeah. Kane is going to be a struggle to go and get up, but otherwise, he has great setup right now. He's got 3 people attacking. He's got Rosa still alive who can go and cast Cure 4. This is going to let him get through the fight. But speaking of getting through the fight, Gundampilotspaz is through that Mist Dragon at Ogopogo, gaining a bunch of levels off it, and is going to go and find the Luca key. This is a real dud. Because Warp Glitched, we've already gotten the key item from the Sealed Cave, so...
It is key item number 8 for Gundampilotspaz, so getting close to that key item. And I saw the pass. What was the other item there?
I just missed it. That people are saying that it was a whammy, so it must have. Oh, a Murasame. I mean, Edge at least has 2 ninjas. The big advantage of the pass means that when progression is on the moon, which it really seems like it is, we're going to be able. Nitzguy isn't going to have to go and do the walk again. He's going to be able to go straight to Threemus from Toria.
The interesting thing now is we've defeated D-Mist, at least Gundampilotspaz has. Now, the question becomes, when do you go down to check that Village Mist?
That is a hard question because if you... Well, we really don't have... Well, the only rabbit hole we have is Tower Key, which is a reasonably quick check. And if you find the hook off that...
Well, the other thing is, if the mist item is the pan could be gating basically everything else that we need in order to complete that, depending on where the hook falls, what the rat tail gives, Sheila 2, the sylphs. There's so many things that the pan enables at this point as well. It's a gamble, and it kind of depending on how you feel in the race, you might be willing to make that gamble to go and check that and forsake the rest of the moon things. You might want to make an extra save there in the lunar subterrane, head down. If it's a dud, you can reset out. If it's not, you can follow that rabbit hole until you get what you possibly might need.
Yeah, the really awful part is if it's one, like if you get one of the 2 items and follow that and it doesn't give the other, like say you get the hook and you check the rat tail but it's not the pan.
Yeah.
Then you're either resetting back here and having to go and redo those checks again. Well, hook would probably be the best one. If it's the pan and you have to go and redo those checks and you don't go and get your progression, then you're in this awkward position of, well, I've done an objective and I spent this time doing that. Where am I losing more time resetting back to the moon and avoiding the walk? Or do I have to go and just commit to Cave Bahamut and the top of the moon without going all the way down again? It's a really harsh choice. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see it checked until our runners down here clear the ribbon spot, the white spear spot, the Ogopogo spot, and the crystal sword altar.
Yeah, that I can see basically the runners choosing either way. Like, I think it depends on how they feel in the race and how willing they are just in their own minds to make a gamble like that.
Yeah, that's something where if you feel behind, I wouldn't be surprised if Gundampilotspaz ends up feeling behind because this is his second wipe to Ogopogo and he had that long D-Mist fight. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go and say, all right, I have to go and make a play. I need to do something. We're betting on D-Mist, and we're going and abandoning parts of the bottom of the moon. Maybe he picks Crystal Sword before that and just abandons Ogopogo, because Ogopogo is probably one of the harshest bosses in the game. Wyvern is probably the meanest in the form of, haha, I open with Mega Nuke, and I can probably kill your party right away if you're not prepared. Ogopogo, from a design standpoint, is just brutal attrition. He is going to punch down your party. He's going to do those HP-based big wave attacks, which are going to do so much damage, especially to your high-level team. And if you don't have a high-power cure spell like Cure 3 in the mid-game or Cure 4 at this point, you're going to go and just start bleeding your characters. And that's what's happening to Gundampilotspaz. He's going and taking some damage, and then the punch is coming out to finish them off, and he's not able to go and get them up because Cure 3 it's a good spell, but it's a really, really underpowered spell compared to the amount of damage he's taking.
The difference in Gundampilotspaz's Ogopogo fight and this guy's successful Ogopogo fight is probably that Cure 4. The amount of healing that you get is just so much better, and not a surprise. Gundampilotspaz not going to bang his head against it more. Might go back there if he gains a few more levels, but it looks like he's going to go check the Crystal Sword altar next. I'm going to get another boss check, and I think this is a smart move. I mean, we know it's smart because we know what's behind there, and that pass would be really nice, but it's not necessary. But I also think it's a smart move just in general for him. You don't want to beat your head against something that you don't think you can beat. Go somewhere else. If you could beat a different boss, you're going to get experience for that as well. And it could be what you need in order to complete the seed in any case.
Yeah, I hard agree. You're not making progress on the boss. You either have to stop and grind somewhere. Oh, well, if you want to stop and grind somewhere, taking 5 random moon fights could probably go and get you a fair amount of experience, but it's going to take a hot minute. Now I'm on team, put a save here and exit. Like, I would double up my save here so I don't accidentally overwrite it and exit and check what's on Earth, because check that Threemus, you've already done it, you don't have to do any fights, you can go and try and find something. If Threemus goes and leads you to something, you can follow that. Otherwise, you can come back to the moon and check the top spots. But those are 2 awful fights for Gundampilotspaz, and this is the alt gauntlet. For those who are not familiar, in the vanilla game, it's the Fabul gauntlet, because it's the Baron army attacking Fabul. It is a series of fights against three fights of 2 officers, 2 soldiers, 1 officer, 2 fights against a set of monsters, and 1 fight against a gargoyle in succession with no breaks in between. With the alt gauntlet, instead of being that Baron army attacking wherever they are, it is random encounters pulled from the surrounding area. And it still takes a lot of time to do all those fights.
And on the moon, those are lunar encounters. That Fatal Eye itself has a lot of HP. Oh, and it is the pan here in Village Mist. This could be a big boon for Gundampilotspaz. He now has what it takes to complete objective number 3. We are just a hook or a legend and adamant away from go mode on Gundampilotspaz's side.
Yeah, and if he gets 1 key item off of this, he's going to get 10 key items. That is going to be a big help for him. And whichever item if he gets the hook, he's going to be in great position, because he's going to go and he'll have the pan. He'll be able to go and do that last objective. I think he might want to go and grind to his Z levels beforehand, just because before or after, you're going to have to do those fights, and you're not going to be you'll just be getting the crystal at the end of that, but you'll be at 10 key items beforehand. 10 key items enables double experience. Really nice position to be in.
It looks like nitzguy is going to be hot on his heels. nitzguy might be feeling behind. Remember, like right at the beginning of the seed, nitzguy had an unfortunate reset before doing a save, and so even right from that, he might be thinking that he's been behind the entire time, is willing to make the gamble on the demist without seeing. He didn't go and see that alt gauntlet fight. So this is a totally different situation, but he's going to go back. He's going to find that pan as well.
Yeah, and Gundampilotspaz only getting a protectoring from Waking Yang. Now we're going to go and see what Sheila 2 has. If Sheila 2 has the hook, both our runners are going to be in go mode. Only nitzguy is higher level and has the pass, which is going to be very helpful for him. Gundampilotspaz does not have that Cecil, so he's going to be able to go and finesse his agility better. But we're in a tight spot for both our runners right now.
Yeah, this is really exciting. It still could go either way, depending on like whether or not this is go mode and what the routing is going to be. If there's going to be any other checks for key items, we still have that Odin spot. We still have those Feymarch spots. So there's other places to check on the blue planet while we're down here as well.
Yeah, you can go and decide to just go straight down to that Feymarch as well. Getting the package, that is not progression, but do you just stay on the blue planet and check the rest of the things you've left behind so far?
If you're going to maximize your time, like one of the things that I kind of want to do to try to avoid unnecessary time throughout a seed is minimize the 9 times that you have to see the animation of that big whale. And so I don't like going back and forth between the moon and the blue planet too many times if I can help it. So yeah. I'd really like to knock out the Odin spot and maybe the Feymarch spots if I can while I'm on this run. But it kind of depends on where you feel yourself. After being able to complete that demist in the levels, it looks like Gundampilotspaz is going to crack at least a couple eggs here now that he's got that 10 key item mark. And this might be what he needs in order to finish those, like that Ogopogo and the other boss spots on the moon, as well as perhaps do those Feymarch and Odin spots here on the blue planet as well.
Yeah, now it seems like a great time to go and get yourself up to your Threemus levels.
Yeah, and I think I saw that he still had 15 sirens in his inventory, so that should be enough for him to get wherever he wants to for the rest of the seed.
Yeah, you need 15 sirens to take Palom up to level 52 from base level to get him that 900,000 experience for Nuke. So I think Gundam Pilot is going to be able to get to very comfortable levels. If he goes for Nuke, that'll definitely be good for him because Nuke is that's a solid spell.
It's pretty good.
I can see an argument for going and stopping sooner because maybe you don't need that for these fights and you can go and get some checks in and push yourself up to final experience that way. Or you can just have Nuke for these fights and just chunk off the HP with that spell.
The nice thing here is with that cursed ring in the inventory, you can even level Sid up quite a bit. And so he can still do... It's not going to be great damage. It's not going to be cursed ring Cecil damage by any stretch of the imagination. But he can still do some decent damage in the Threemus fight while still being a good anchor. And that's kind of one of the advantages that Sid has. It's not great, but it's something. More than a lot of the, like, if you go with a base level character and just knock him out and have that be your anchor throughout a lot of the fight. Oh, and nitzguy now going through, he never completed the first Baron objective as well. And so he's going to go and do that, and maybe we'll see an Odin Throne check after that.
Yeah, that's not going to go and get him progression right here, or right off the first check. So this is going to go and give a bit of breathing room to Gundampilotspaz, but Gundampilotspaz is behind in grinding compared to nitzguy, but he's done enough grinding, is looking to go down into Feymarch. Both of our runners are one objective away from go mode. We don't have any double checks left, so the Legend Sword is going to be a very hard find for these runners, I think. It is going to go and be, or the Forge objective is going to be a very hard find. It's going to require them to hit 2 checks that give both the items. We are down to just a few checks left, but...
You know, when we're at this elimination stage of the tournament, both of these runners fighting for their lives in the hook route, it's really exciting to have it come down to this. We had seen those points where the runners come together after diverging a number of times, and now they're in that divergence again. This might be what it all comes down to. And who knows, they might come together again at another point. This seed has given us quite a bit.
What could happen is, say, Gundampilotspaz finds the Legend Sword, but nitzguy finds the hook. Gundampilotspaz comes up and finds the hook up here, and the Rat Tail gives the adamant. Nitzguy would still have to go through launch the Falcon Path to go through those 2 boss fights, while Gundampilotspaz would be in position to just forge and skip that. We can still have some very interesting turns in this race.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that anybody is slam dunk ahead at this point. That we're going to see, especially if we've got this Mylon Z at the Leviathan spot that Gundampilotspaz is going to try to take on right now. This fight is going to hit very hard. This is one of the strongest physical attack spots in the game, and Mylon Z does a lot of physical attacks. You're getting a bit of a reprieve at the beginning of the fight. Is the first thing that he does is he's scripted to like just posture and threaten the party at first, and then he'll get into this really strong physical attack routine, and it's a pretty fast spot as well, as you're seeing.
Yeah, the developers really liked going and giving spots that never did one of 2 things. Either if it never cast spells, giving it high physical, or if it always cast spells and never attacked, give it high physical attack power, or if it never cast spells and always punch, giving it high magic power and with these endgame spots. So this is really rude. You never want to go and actually be doing this fight like this. And if nitzguy has to do this, he does theoretically have the advantage of Cecil, who will cover, but looks like nitzguy wants to keep Cecil at a specific agility, so Cecil is now taking a nap.
Yeah, you don't want to get that little incidental thing to bump him above that level of experience and agility that you want him at. It's very important if you're going to use Cecil as your anchor to manage that properly, and that's what this guy's doing. We see the pink tail from Mylon Z, not what he wants to see at this point, but we still have Octomam right next door.
Yeah, Octomam. Let's see. The spots we have left are Cape Bahamut, Mura Semi-Alter, and Gauntlet on the Moon. Theoretically, all three of
And
them.
the Odin spot.
We also have the Odin spot and the Ashura spot. Just speaking of the moon, you could theoretically have all three of the items on the moon itself with adamant.
Yeah, that's still a distinct possibility.
Or we could go and have one part here. Nitzguy could go and find something in the barren basement. We're running out of possibilities, but we're not out of root spots yet. We do have to find the tower key somewhere, and that could get an item.
Mm-hmm.
But we are.
It could be all behind that alt gauntlet as well.
Well, yeah, we could go and have alt gauntlet block hook and rat tail block one of the two parts of the forge.
Yep.
So we could have it all be on the moon. We could have it all be gated by the moon. We could all go and just be stuck floundering around. Gundampilotspaz is going to go and find out what he's getting from these Feymarch bosses. Are we getting any form of progress?
Just a Dragoon Lance. Oh, the no reward for completing these Feymarch bosses. Very unfortunate for Gundampilotspaz. And now Nitzguy heading over to the barren basement throne for the vanilla Odin spot. And we see the Dark Elf, a very doable fight here.
There's... Oh, right. The sad part about Cecil taking a nap is the fact that Dark Elf is pretty weak to holy damage. I think he has the White Spear, so he's going to do some really nice damage. But that Crystal Sword Cecil would just simply be laughing at the damage he does at this poor Dark Elf.
It's what, like at least 8 times damage when it's in dark dragon form, right?
I think it might just be 4 times damage, but it's a Crystal Sword doing bonus damage. It's going to go and probably hit quad 9s.
I thought it was it gets bonus for dragon type and holy, but I might be mistaken on that one.
The Crystal Sword does not go and hit for the
Doesn't
dragon
hit the
type.
dragons, yeah. Okay.
It's the undead
That's
type,
right.
which is
yes.
That's what makes it such a laugh. That's why Mylon Z will probably always take quad max damage from a Crystal Sword swing. Because Crystal Sword, all holy swords are holy element. Only the Crystal Sword also goes and exploits the undead racial weakness.
Just a spoon.
To the moon! When our runners get there, because they're probably going to be... This is evil. This is so evil. I am so glad I'm not running this seed, because I would be pulling my hair out. An hour 44, no dot duns, you still have 0 visibility on 2 objectives. Gundampilotspaz is going back up to the moon. He knows that the Ogopogo is... He's faded that. He faded the Alt Gauntlet. If he goes for the top of the moon, that's his best shot. Well, Nitzguy, he's got good incentives to go and check Feymarch because he's here. And that's where he's going, but we know this isn't going to reward him. While Gundampilot...
He's going Cave Bahamut.
Just doing the math, this is very likely to go and give him part of one objective. The best thing for Nitzguy is this gives him a part of the forge and not the hook. Because if it's the hook and Nitzguy is still cleaning up this underground, that is a big time advantage for Gundampilotspaz.
It's interesting because Gundampilotspaz is making... This is another gamble. And at this point, I think both runners have to feel like, what the heck? Where am I going to do it? So they might be doing some other things. Like there's a couple things that Gundampilotspaz still has on the blue planet that he hasn't checked. And the main thing is that Odin spot. I was going to say he hasn't completed Mount Ordeals, which is true, but he did check it and he reset out of it. So he still has that Odin spot, but he's fading that for this opportunity. Finds a Lunar Sparkle here.
This is either Paladin or... This is Paladin, right? No, this is Plague.
Plague.
Oh, this is... Depending on how well you can abuse your agility, this is much better for Gundampilotspaz than it is for Nitzguy, just because Small thing about statuses, if you don't go and give the ATB time to actually check by, flooding it with commands of berserkers, you can go and prevent your team from prevent the game from actually updating that you're supposed to die from the count effect. It's a little bit of an abuse of the ATB system, but I mean, what else is new for what we do in this game?
The other more traditional thing looks to be what Gundampilotspaz is setting up here. If you knock out one of your characters and then revive them, you can. Flag will see that one of your characters doesn't have the count status on, and will reapply that count status because he doesn't see it up there, and can use that to. The only way that he applies count is applying it to everybody at 10, and so it'll reset everybody else.
Yeah, and as you can see, Gundampilotspaz was sitting on 0 for a fair amount of time. That is what happens when you do something called queue jamming, where you just have so many actions queued up, the ATB is just stuck trying to go and process more and more and more things. And that's what happened. He went and stalled the ATB enough that all of his berserkers were going and just doing things, prevented the count from going off on his characters. It went off for Rosa because she didn't have anything queued, so it checked hers and said, oh, this happened. And Gundampilotspaz is in go mode. The hook is in cave value. Oh dear, this is not looking good for nitzguy, who is still in the Fame Arch. He is going to be getting through and going to be fighting this Octoman, but where he goes afterwards is going to be a big question. If nitzguy... Go ahead. I was going to say, if nitzguy goes straight to Cave Bahamut, gets the hook, and clears that route faster, or just simply clears it, and while Gundampilot is walking through the moon, we could go and have a double Z fight. But it is going to come down to where nitzguy goes after finding this hook.
Exactly. If he decides to go back to the lunar subterranean for the 2 checks that he hasn't made in there yet, if he plays the math, then I guess it's still possible, because that could be the Legend Sword and the Adamant as those 2 spots that are left there. And so then he could go back, take the pass. Meanwhile, Gundampilotspaz goes through the rest of this hook route to launch the Falcon for his objective. There's either way that this goes, he has a chance of making it really tight at the end.
Right, but that alt gauntlet fight could take a really long time.
That is true.
That is something that's going to be really hard for nitzguy to pull through. He has the stronger team. He has the higher levels. He's just going to be ripping through these fights. He has an extremely strong team. I don't think he has his Gundampilotspaz, I don't believe, is at nuke levels yet, which is something you would want to go and have with a Palom in your team. Trying to go and buy a number of silk webs.
He's pretty close to those nuke levels. The last fight for the plague fight, Palom learned Video. So
only 1 or 2 levels away.
Yeah, he's pretty close. I don't think the Rubicante spot will be enough XP to get it, but if he cracks 1 or 2 eggs, he'd be there if he wants to ensure having that. It's not by no means necessary to have that in order to defeat Threemus, but it does make having Palom a lot more valuable.
Yeah. Hey, it's a blue robe, and we know where the alt gauntlet is, so this is going to be a 3-hit fight.
Yeah, this is a real nice relief to have here. Not a tough fight that you're going to get there. There is the King Queen Evelyn spot right before it. At these levels, though, even the scariest bosses that you can find there aren't going to be too bad.
Yeah, the King Queen Evelyn spot is going to punch hard, but it's not going to punch hard for a team of moon level characters.
And it's got relatively low HP, especially compared to the fight after. The Rubicante spot has very high HP, but the King Queen Evelyn spot is pretty low. And with the amount of physical damage that either one of the teams that we've got in this race, they can take it down pretty quick. The real question is, where is nitzguy going to go now that he's on the moon?
Yeah, he's rested. He's fully recovered. He's going back up to the moon. if he goes to Cape Bahamut, he's still in this because Gundampilotspaz does have the lead right now, but Gundampilotspaz is lower on levels and does not have the pass. He is going to have to walk the full moon. And nitzguy is going to Cape Bahamut. nitzguy is going to preserve his chances as long as he's able to get through this plague fight.
Yeah, this should be a really good end to this race. This has been a great race altogether. And right now, I think since we haven't done it yet, I just want to give a quick shout out. Our Restreamer, who also rolled this wonderful seed tonight, is Gambit. We've got Chazman doing the tracking today. Without the two of them, we wouldn't have this wonderful race being put on for you all. So want to just make sure to give them a big shout out.
Yeah, not having the backup we do, we wouldn't be able to put on these great races. So thank you again to our support, Gambit017 and Chazman89. We really appreciate you showing this amazing race.
And I just talked about having relatively low HP at this King Queen and Upland spot. And then, of course, the seed's going to prove me wrong. This seed got to throw me a curveball every now and then. We've got Mom Bomb at the King Queen Evelyn spot. And Mom Bomb kind of has an artificially inflated HP count. It still should be enough for the team to get through it relatively quickly, but not as low an HP spot as I thought originally.
Yeah, it takes that 6,000 HP to 16,000 because Mom gets an extra 10,000 HP to guarantee she goes through her exploding script. Unless you have absurd damage, just simply say, no, we're going and taking you down.
Baka, please tell me you actually did finger quotes when you said guarantee.
I'm pleading the fifth on that, thank you kindly.
And now we're in that second fight there, that water hag that we had mentioned before. This is a scripted fight in the vanilla game, and that carries over to free enterprise. You hit it 3 times, and it'll say ARG and go away. So it's not a fight that's... There are certain places where it can still be somewhat dangerous, most notably like where this guy is fighting Flag. Water hag can be scary. The Leviathan spot, it can be scary. But if you can get 3 hits off, you're in good shape.
Yeah, the scariest place would be any place where you have to play fair agility and can't go and do that. And nitzguy is going and reflecting counts onto Plague. That is going... You can kill Plague with his own count. It's a little tricky, but it is possible. Plague is not immune to the instant death of Count.
It's a very weird strategy, but it absolutely works.
Yep. Or you can just go and push them down because damage also works. Damage is a good thing. We're going to go and get a reset on the count here.
And Gundampilotspaz now entering the room with the Launch the Falcon objective being completed. He's going to get that notification right after this short cutscene. Going to get the Launch the Falcon, going to get the crystal. And the question is, he can now grind an egg or two to get that nuke if he needs it. Or he can go straight to Threemus now if he feels like it. It depends on how comfortable he is and how much more damage he wants Palom to be able to do.
Yep. Here is the question. What do you think is going to be faster? Getting nuke on Palom to accelerate your Z fight, or just going straight to Threemus? And looks like Gundampilotspaz is choosing to go straight to Threemus. He does not want to take any delays. It's almost 2 hours into the seed. There is no dot done. I can see him saying, I can't stop. I have to go. I have to go. I have to go. And now nitzguy going and high-fiving Gundampilotspaz as he launches his whale while nitzguy lands his whale. nitzguy is going to be doing the walk through the hook route, going to pick up their hovercraft, going to go and drop that off, get to the... Oh, nitzguy has to launch his hovercraft as well. That is going to cost him even more time, unfortunately. He never checked this character. So
Yeah, I think Gundampilotspaz is in a bit of an edge, or in a bit of a lead right now. Now it's going to be navigating that Threemus fight. He does have the advantage of, as we've been saying throughout the course of the seed, playing unfair with agility. So he doesn't have to worry about like he's got a very good anchor in a Curse Ring Sid. He can set up everything he wants to do. He's got less power than nitzguy will have. He doesn't have that Crystal Ring Cecil. He doesn't have Nuke on his Palom. And the difference in that and having Sid as a damage dealer is going to be fine-ish. I'll put it that way. So that's kind of what we're dealing with. Yeah, go ahead.
He could choose to anchor with Palom, take the curse string off Sid, and put it on Palom, because Palom doesn't have Nuke. Without Nuke, Palom is a lot less good in the Z fight, but he still has that terrible agility, kind of almost as bad as Sid, to be honest. If you put a curse string on him, he's probably going to be at like 5 or 6 agility. That'll be enough to bring pretty much everyone up to relative agility 1. That could be enough. You go and let Sid have a swell of strength and go and use that Rune X to full power, put the kid in the middle who's unfortunately not got Nuke and is not going to be able to go and completely destroy the Threemus with the power of, Ancient's magic spells. And now you've got 3 Berserkers who are going. I do have one question though. How many Bakashinobi does Gundampilotspaz have?
It looks like he has 8. I think that'll be enough.
That's enough, especially when he has an Avenger and he's using it very gratuitously on Kane. You only have to worry about getting up 2 Berserkers. Yeah, that's going to go and save you a fair amount. He's going and adjusting his inventory to bring things up, getting them ready. Level 51 on a lot of his characters, so definitely not bad levels. And he has good equipment on the edge and a defense sword into Avenger for Kane. That is going to be really helpful. Not going to go and rejigger the party to go and have Palom as the anchor. That's definitely respectable because you're already set up on Sid. Don't want to go and take the time to take it off. And Edge and Kane and Rosa can be more than enough to carry the seed.
One other consideration, like I've just been thinking about that possibility of switching that curse string over to Palom and using him as the anchor. If we still have that Artemis bow in the inventory and any decent arrows, that makes Sid a lot scarier as a Berserker as well. That's just one option that could be in there. I don't even recall us seeing a whole lot of arrows throughout the entire. I don't think we've seen even Rosa fire a lot of bow and arrows throughout this seed.
Yeah, and another thing we're seeing a lot of the Z flags with Z's on them. What's up with that? Is it nap
time? It is time to ask the question: whose butt are we going to kick tonight?
Indeed. We don't go and add Threemus to the normal boss pool because, well, he's the final boss for a reason. He's a bit too strong, a bit too complicated, and a bit too imposing.
Everything.
Yeah, he's a bit too everything. But we can't leave him alone in Randomizer. We have to go and do something. So instead of leaving his sprite vanilla, we, with the help of Scala-Kitty and Boardface, have created a number of different sprites, which we will go and see once the crystal is thrown. Meanwhile, nitzguy is going and getting into that Malmon fight, didn't even go and heal up, so his characters are still pretty low HP from going down, and some of them are getting punched down, unfortunately, but not going to be enough to go and stop this team.
And here we have the Z sprite reveal for tonight. Oh, honk, honk, honk.
Peace was never an option.
This is definitely a crowd favorite Z sprite.
Yes, from the Terrible Goose from that Goose Game. Or the Goose Game?
Untitled Goose Game, I believe.
That's correct. And really, what could be more rude than a goose like that?
So we're going to see Gundampilotspaz once transformed, get some Bacchus winds up, switch the Avenger over to Kane, Rosa throwing a Silk Web, which gives a counter nuke. What this does is set Threemus' magic power lower for this first big bang, so it'll do a whole lot less damage than it'll normally do. Will be easy to recover with Rosa. We may see Palom decide to throw up a Star Veil point and reflect some sorts of magic, perhaps like a third level elemental spell or something like that to do some damage. he might just be there to throw some items if necessary, cure 3s and whatnot.
Yeah, or he might just simply go and be left to take a nap while... If he's not going to do much, it goes and takes time to get through the turns. I would not be unsurprised if Gundampilotspaz lets Callum go down and just stay down.
Yeah, that would be perfectly serviceable too. He did his work throughout the rest of the seed, really.
Yeah, and speaking of going down, this guy has gone and taken down Waterhag and is going to be going straight to the Zeromus fight, I expect. They have the pass, they're able to go straight from Troya, but Gundampilotspaz is in the fight already and is not seeming to be in real danger. Is casting a wall on Sid, though, so he might go and start reflecting spells off Sid.
Yeah, I think that's a respectable way to do it too. The problem with putting the wall on Palom is more if another big bang comes up, you wouldn't be able to heal him afterwards with your Cure 4. But Sid has such a huge HP pool, tanking a big bang isn't all that big a deal for him.
Yeah, that's it's going to take a lot to go and take Sid down. Also going and reflecting whites with Rosa. One of the great reasons why Rosa is amazing. She learns really good spells at lower levels than the twins. I think Rosa is also level 40, is 51 or so, but she's got white. Palom doesn't have nuke.
Palom does have Meteo, but probably best not to use Meteo against Serums.
Unless you want to go and see a weak counter.
Yeah. And we see that Curse Ring Sid with Berserk still doing almost 2,000 damage with his Berserk hits. And that's kind of the advantage of having Sid as an anchor. He's a great anchor, and he still does that damage. Cecil is an okay anchor at 28 agility, and he does massive damage. So that's kind of the difference. Ooh, but unfortunately, that was a high roll, big bang. This might be what nitzguy needs to get back into this, depending on if these Berserkers can finish off the fight. We are in Meteo phase.
Oh, this is coming down to... he's got 3 characters up, all of them 1 Meteo away, but the flash comes out. Gundampilotspaz has won this race and will be advancing into the 2-1 hook route playoff race.
Very clutch win there. Got to that Meteo. It was the always feared big bang into Meteo at the end of the fight that every runner of Free Enterprise has lost a run to every now and then, but able to get the nice dodge on Edge, have all his Berserkers up, get that flash, big win, well played. Gundampilotspaz in this heck of a seed.
And it sounds like we're joined by Gundampilotspaz now. GG's on your win.
Thank you so much. I still haven't... It's been 15 minutes. I still haven't caught my breath, really. Oh, man.
I know that. How were you feeling when you were having you hit a lot of hard bosses on the moon? How were you feeling when you had to try and deal with that Ogopogo?
I thought Ogopogo was kind of going to be the key. I thought that's where my key items are going to be. I mean, the board AI tends to put things in the most unopportune places, and that feels like where it was. And I felt like if my opponent was able to push through that, I would be done. But I got to the moon, I think, at around 35. Probably finished the moon 40-ish. I just didn't have the power to push through, so I had to leave it for later.
Yeah, that's you've definitely had a rough time on that moon. And speaking of rough fights, that Demist fight with were you getting nervous with how long it was taking, or were you just willing to go through it?
I knew that fight was going to take a while, and it's 2 key items. It's as dense as the Ogopogo fight, which I knew I was going to butt my head into. So I had to take one of them. Otherwise, going to the moon was going to be kind of a waste. And that fight is doable. It's just long.
Yeah, that's entirely fair, and that's a reasonable approach as well. When you after you check that D-mist, what was going to go in? What was your limit for getting pushed back to the Earth? Were you going to go and try and clear out the moon if you could go and finish the bottom? What was your thinking based on just looking at that? What kept you hanging around as much as you did rather than just going straight for D-mist?
Well, I was already on the moon. I did immediately think that I should save Scrum out just to check D-mist and return. But I figured I should check a couple more bosses, and then I ran into that gauntlet, and that's when I said, "All right, let me get out of here," because every second that D-mist check isn't done is a second that increases my chance to forget it, and increases the chances my opponent has already checked it. So I figured that was going to be safe. It was safer to do it than save if it was nothing, save Scrum back, or stay on the Earth and take out Feymarch, which kind of was also in the back of my head, because the Feymarch bosses, I knew, when I first checked them, I didn't have the levels to beat them, but I probably could have taken them at the levels I first went to the moon. So those were in the back of my head.
Yeah, and that's definitely very... Go ahead, Rex.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, I think one of the interesting choices, one thing that we thought was just really fun to see, you had that, after completing the Dwarf Castle run, you had that crystal sword in your inventory. It wasn't too much longer that you decided to do that quick check through Mount Ordeals, which you ended up resetting out of, but there was that Dark Knight Cecil up there on the mountain, and you ditched him as quickly as you could. What was your thoughts and seeing Cecil with that crystal sword in your inventory?
So I prescribe to the invenerable rule of selling the crystal sword to assert dominance over the seed. Obviously, if there was a second Cecil Symbols, I would have considered it, but with Kane with the defense sword and the Edge with 2 legendary blades, I wasn't really hurting for damage. I had a good anchor. I had Rosa. My setup, I was very comfortable with my setup going into the Zeromus fight. I just needed to get access.
Yeah, that was something that we were curious about, that because it was a lot of power to give up, but that relative agility one is definitely helped you out a fair bit.
Yeah, in fact, when I going into the Ogo fight, I think Sid was at 0 agility, and it was like I saw that, I was like, yeah, this was the right choice. I mean, a Sid anchor, if you can get that curse string, is I think it's, I don't see as many people use him as I would expect, but he can still deliver damage even with the curse string. So he's better than having Atella on the ground during the Z fight. He can inch you over the line, in my opinion.
Yeah, he was doing 2,000 damage to the swing. That's definitely respectable damage at that point. Yeah. When you saw the objectives, what were you thinking was going to be the way you were going to finish this seed?
It wasn't that. To be honest, I was really hoping to find the halves of the Excalibur forge, so I didn't, especially with the magma key start. Nice touch Gambit to have a hook requirement with a magma key start. That's spicy. But yeah, I was hoping with the magma key start to find the halves of the Excalibur, so I wouldn't have to go do that, because it's, I mean, as you saw on and I watched nitzguy finish too. It's just a long. It's you 2 dungeons you have to walk through to get to that Falcon. Even at those levels, the bosses were nothing, but it's still a couple minutes that are just burned. And every second, with an hour 50, I expected to see the dot done come in. It was nerve-wracking.
Yeah, that was definitely a rude seed. It really went and just led you around. You're able to get that Baron key quickly, and then were you sweating when you were not able to get any objectives complete for over an hour?
Yeah, so there's a couple points in this seed where I just kind of I sat and I just sighed. and I was just like, "This, there's no way I can pull this off." My first dip underground when I checked those item shops and found absolutely nothing. I mean, like I'm looking at my tracker now. It was Cure 2s and Ether 1s and Dwarf, the Cabin in Feymarch, and Soma drops in Tamara. Like that's no utility at all. And so, I mean, I was able to. I think I stole like 17 sirens, but even that, like, Edge kept missing. It's just like the seed. The seed was trying to outplay me and halt me at every opportunity, and I just pushed through, and I kept rerouting in my head. As soon as I got the darkness crystal, I knew I had to get up to the moon. But every time, you know, like I had committed to fading ordeals as long as possible. There was a period, like when I was in the Asura fight at top of tower, that's when I said, like, all right, I need to do that after this, then the Feymarch fights, because any of those early overworld checks, if it has value and, you know, then your opponent has it, then that's one objective they're ahead. So I wanted to, I didn't want to fade it completely, but of course with the darkness crystal. So that's why I routed that right before calling the whale. Other than that, like, I think like an underrated skill in Free Enterprise, and you saw it really a lot during the Invenerable versus Rivers matches at the end of the Football Gauntlet. It's knowing when to leave a dungeon or leave a fight, and Ogopogo and that alt gauntlet, like, I knew that I had to kind of reroute and kind of go around that, gain some levels, and come back later, and that just comes with experience.
Yeah, that was definitely a good call backing out of that Ogopogo fight. It did go and give the pass, but no other part of an objective. And the alt gauntlet, well, no one went and sat through that.
Yeah, definitely. Didn't want to do that at all. But thank you. You know, I want to thanks both. I'm excited to listen back to the whole race. For both of your commentary. Thanks to Chazman on tracking, and Gambit on Restream. Thank you for rolling this hot mess of a seed. Much respect to my opponent. I'm gonna be honest. Like, after my win last week, I looked at all the 1-1 opponents, and I looked. You know, I said, okay, a lot of these I think I can probably beat in a one-on-one. If I really pushed. And the two I said I really didn't want was Boransor and Nitzguy. So huge respect to him. Excited to watch back his routing and see how we differed. So, but it was I'm happy with how I performed, but you know, as I go into the playoffs, I know I have a lot of work to do.
Hey, best of luck. That was an amazing race. We saw a lot of great things, so I think you're going to go and have a good time rewatching this.
Yeah, thanks again.
Thank you. Have a great evening. And now we are joined by our other race participant, nitzguy1. GG's Nitz. Sorry for how that seed ended up turning out for you.
Oh, it's okay. Those things happen. It's the nature of the randomizer. Sometimes you make the right decision, and then sometimes you make the wrong decision, and then sometimes you just, at the beginning, you forget to save and lose 3.5 minutes. So that happens.
Yeah, that was a real crushing event to see happen.
The second I opened the chest, I didn't save, and then I instinctively panicked, tried to run, and obviously that didn't work. And you know, as Moon scared me, basically that's how that went. After half clearing it and running into D-Miss, I probably should have gone back and at least finished K Bahamut, at that point things might have been a bit better. But you know, I thought maybe Baron Castle was a play, maybe Feymarch was a play, but you live and learn.
Would you like to go and hear who the boss was at the Crystal Sword altar?
It couldn't have been anybody difficult. I mean, I ran into Golbez, ran into Wyvern. I'm gonna guess it was probably Elements.
Rex, would you do the honors?
It was the alt gauntlet.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Well, I'm glad that I ended up fading that, and
You would have been greeted with a fatal eye at the beginning, and then just know, like, oh, I'm in for a treat now.
Would you like to know where the legend and adamant were?
The legend I think was in the tower behind Tower Key.
Nope, it was behind the alt gauntlet.
Oh, it was behind the old gauntlet. Nice.
And the adamant was at the Murasame Shrine.
Oh, jeez.
Moon had.
Yeah. Oh well.
It was definitely a not haunted moon.
No,
Moon had 3 required objectives. And
yeah, I faded those. I mean, for better or worse. My grind was not the most efficient. I panicked just a little bit, and was grinding gold dragons with no hourglasses and no nothing, and yeah. So
yeah. No, that's easy to do. I need to get levels. I'm really far away from any of my preferred grinds. Let's just go and push through gold dragons. That is very understandable to just push through it the best you can. And you did push through it the best you can. You went and got through it, and not even 5 minutes behind Gundampilotspaz, who went and did skip the Baron Throne and didn't go and take Cecil. He went and reset out of Ordeal, so he saved himself a bit of time on that walk down, and just there were some things that he wasn't able to get through the Ogopogo fight, so you were able to go and push that check over him as well. You cleared a lot of the seed, and you did really well. There's just Gundam made a lot of good checks that ended up paying out for him.
yep. And top down was a play. The race I had last week, bottom up was the play. So I wasn't going to really change, although getting the magma key really threw off my routing, which is why I went the way that I went. Normally that wouldn't be how I would start a seed, but which is also why I didn't get the hovercraft, even though it was part of the objectives to launch the Falcon. I just faded that, going, okay, there's no reason to get that at this point. Maybe I can run into the Legend Sword and the Adamant and save myself that, but it turns out it sounds as though that was not the play.
It's definitely not a bad play. I most certainly can respect going and checking that free item down in Feymarch. And yeah, it gave you the Earth Crystal, which gave you a whole bunch of gear, which you can go and use to decide your party, who you want in your party early on. A lot of good things did come out of it. It's just some things didn't go and work out for you.
And that happens. And again, GG to Gundam. Good luck in your 2-1. I'm just gonna call it a bloodbath.
Yeah, that is going to be a race for sure, because he will need to go and take first place in order to go and advance the table.
Yeah. So I'm sure if anybody can do it, it'll be him, and I look forward to watching that race. My time as a player has come to the end, but that just means maybe I just go behind the scenes, and now I'll have some extra time to volunteer for some things, click some buttons, and do some talking. It was really good. I was really shocked that we went this long. I knew at some point something was going to happen, and it just turns out it was just a little bit slower.
You and Gundam were really, like, you would diverge and meet back at points, and diverge and meet back at points. You were just constantly meeting throughout the whole seed.
Yeah.
It really just came down to a few things going Gundam's way versus your way.
And that's how it's been to this tournament for me. There's been some things go my way and some things not go my way. And at the end, I do just want to shout out to everybody on the admin team. Thank you so much for putting this all together. Shout out to you, Baka, and to Rex for providing the talking. I asked Gambit for a tire fire seed, and he delivered. So thank you to that. And thank you to Chazman for doing the tracking. Hopefully, I didn't make things too challenging, and we'll just try and get better for the next time.
Yeah, best of luck going forward. You put on an amazing race today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much again for the time. Thank you to RPG Limit Break for allowing us to bring you this amazing entertainment. And I'm glad that I took down the goose first time, because when I saw him, I was like, no, it's not happening. Also, I wanted to prove to everybody that you can have a 34 agility Cecil, and the Z fight can be no problem. And you don't even have to nerf the first Big Bang. You don't even need a Silver. You just zerk up all your peeps. They got all that sweet gear, and you just hack them down.
Just show off the true power of Cecil and overwhelming damage.
Pretty much. I was just like, he was alive. He got revived at Ruby with Water Hag, and I was just like, that's fine. He's alive. We're not going to spend time, because I knew I was running out of time. And I said, you know what? He's alive. Whatever his agility is, I don't care. We'll have more than enough health, and we'll take care of business.
Sounds like a good plan. Well, Rex, do you have any final questions?
I think you've gone over what I wanted to talk, and thank you, Nitzguy. It was just really good. It was just a fun race between the two of you. It was really good to see, and going to be glad to have you here volunteering with us for the rest of this event as well.
My pleasure. Look forward to the future. Look forward to everybody this week with their races, with winners and losers on the line. And again, just thank you very much from the bottom of my heart.
You're very welcome. Have a great evening.
You guys as well. Bye for now.
Yeah, and speaking of great evenings, we've got more action coming to you tonight. We are going to be sending you on over to the Free Enterprise channel, as they've got another race going tonight. Let me, let's see here. That is going to be King Potato versus Arn Castro 86. So that's going to be another exciting one for y'all to watch next. Baka, do you have any final thoughts before we go?
I think we've covered a lot. We had an amazing race. We had a great show for you all tonight. Everyone go and give your love to the people on the Free Enterprise channel. Do not go and spoil the results of this race. Feel free to go and tell them it's a great one, but let them all be surprised if they want to be surprised by this race.
Have a good night, everybody.